All right, what's up, everybody? This Maddie here. This stream has not gone according to plan. Whenever I went to click to enter the studio for the stream, my laptop screen went black and it shut off, and nothing is working to bring it back. So I'm pretty sure my computer is completely fried. But oh well, I'm on my phone, and we're just we're gonna do it live. That's how we do it over here. We do it live. And yeah, so this is the conclusion of the two-part series we started over on BLA's channel, talking about True Detective Night Country. If you have not seen or listened to the first installment of this, the link is in the description. We were originally going to do this in 4-episode blocks, 2 blocks of 4 episodes, because seasons 1, 2, and 3 were all 8 episodes. We did the first 4, and then I was texting BLA the other day, and he was like, "Oh, I just watched the finale." And I was like, "What, did the episodes get leaked or something?" And he was like, "No, there's only 6 episodes." I was like, "Oh, well, okay, I guess we'll just talk about the last 2. And it'll be fine." So anyway, I guess we're going to go ahead and just jump right into it. Welcome back, BLA.
Yo, what's up? We do it live.
Yeah.
Do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Fucking thing sucks.
Yes, it does. This is the thing in this case being my computer.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep fighting with it, but I think we're done here.
I mean, look, I'm using, I'm using the old ass Dell here with the GoPro. And when I put it, I couldn't even get that set. So I know how you feel. I got that set up, and then there's like 3 settings on GoPro, and then the wide is like the whole fucking house. So, I'm on the narrow. I hope it's fine. I hope you guys can hear me. I don't know, because I don't have headphones, so it's not that. So, we're chilling today. We're chilling today in the crib. I mean, I'm always in the crib, but I look miniature on this. This sofa is actually not like a huge sofa, but the way a camera looks like swallowed up here on the sofa. So
it looks like did you ever see that someone made an edit? It was one of the photos of from a sea town recording, and Nick was sitting on this couch, and somebody was like, "Oh, he looks like the deflated guy from the drug commercials," and so somebody like miniaturized him and made him look flat.
I know exactly which one you're talking about, because he looks 3'11".
Yeah,
in that stream. That's a funny one. So yeah, speaking of which, did you see Shane Gillis last night on SNL?
I did not.
You guys, so let me know if I'm echoing or anything, if I'm good, if the volume's good, because I got the snowball here. It's the room mic, so it might even sound better than I usually do. Who knows? But let me know if it's a thumbs up if it's good. If it's not good, give me a thumbs down, I guess. But anyway, so yeah, Shane Gillis did his monologue last night. He hosted SNL last night. I only saw one skit in the monologue, but the monologue was. It's funny because did you say you saw it?
No, I didn't see it.
Well, I watched it this morning, and it's funny because it's all the old bits. So I guess he had to do he had to redo them sort of for SNL, but it was kind of classic Gillis. But he said, there's one bit he talks about. He's like, when he was young, he was his mom's best friend, and he'd be like, "Look, I'm your little dancer."
Oh my god!
I'm your little dancer.
Wow.
Anyway, you guys got to go watch it. That was a win. When I saw that was announced, I texted you, Maddie, because I thought that was one for the boys. That was a win,
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go see if I'll have to go watch all the clips when they put them online. I was pretty hyped that I was like, I knew SNL, Lorne Michaels would come crawling back eventually.
Yeah, no, Melly says SNL isn't my fave. No, it's not mine either. None of us watch it. But with Gillis on there, you had to watch it. It's again, that's one for the boy. I mean, that's a win for us, I guess. So I thought it was pretty cool. So I watched that one, but I'm not gonna watch any of the other ones. Yeah.
The last time I watched SNL was 2017 because Father John Misty was performing, and I just wanted to see his. He was the musical guest, and so I just muted it, and I was just sitting there doing something else. I think I was reading or something, and then I just kind of look up occasionally. And at one point, like he had done his, I think he did two or three. So he might have only done two.
Yeah.
And so he did his first one, and then I just was like, oh, I'll just watch another skit. Like, see, and it was the worst. I don't even think I made it through 30 seconds of the skit. It was so bad that I just muted it again and waited for him to come back on. Again, it was 2017. Last time I watched it. Show sucks.
I haven't watched it since Gillis got hired and fired that day.
Well, yeah, it was in like a 24-hour period, I think.
It was in one day. Yeah, well, I think it was because he even mentioned it last night. He's like, if you don't know who I am, don't Google me. But I think that was because of C-Town, or it was he'd been on C-Town. Anyway, it was good. It was one for the boys, I thought. So I didn't even watch it when Charlie XCX was the musical guest. I mean, I watched a little bit of that, but yeah, that's saying something. So.
Oh yeah.
Anyway.
So True Detective, Night Country. This was this, I will say I didn't hate it. I didn't hate this season. I enjoyed it up until, not that I didn't, it was like we got 15 minutes, maybe 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes into episode 6.
Yeah.
And it started going downhill. And for me, and I still didn't hate the ending, but I was like, that's it. Like this is how it ends. This is the best. I don't know. I wouldn't, we'll get into all that. I was pretty disappointed. And I put a lot of thought into the ending after that, since I finally watched it last night, and I was just kind of thinking about it, and I was like, man, it was a bit of a letdown. What was your take on these kind of your general take on these final 2 episodes?
Well, I'll say this. If anybody hadn't seen it, go over to my channel and watch the breakdown of the first 4 episodes, because you and I did it. And I'll say, as a general overview just of how we covered it, I mean, we were extremely generous. And I hope people understand that. I mean, look, I think we're it's not that we're positive posters, but we are. But I enjoy movies. I'm a movie enjoyer, big time. And so we weren't doing a review of the series. We were trying to do a deep dive into the things that we could take from it, especially that were like the first 3 seasons. But even with that being said, like, we were very generous. And one reason that I was generous was because I thought, okay, with all this, there has to be a payoff, right? Because sometimes there is. I mean, I think generally speaking, with the long form television format for these shows, there was obviously, they started, and then there was a golden age of streaming, television streaming, which was like True Detective 1, House of Cards, seasons 1 and 2 were part of that. Too Old to Die Young was on Amazon. Like the Devs, I thought, was part of that. There's a few of them that like were really great, but the problem is that they've recognized like how lucrative this is, and so the story and all of the shit in the world has like poisoned the well to the extent that even the people who make these shows that have something extraordinary or revelatory to say or to show in the series, like, they stretch it out to the point where all of the stuff, I realized when this was over, that all of the stuff that was in all 6 seasons could have been shown literally in 1 episode, right? And this is really the reason why, like, serial shows like I don't know, like X-Files or something, are so good, because there's a lot wrapped into 1 episode, and then it goes on to the next, and then it kind of starts it takes stuff from the last, seasons, and then it builds on it, but it's still its own self-contained episode. If you're going to take a different kind of show, like something like Unsolved Mysteries, right, which is to me like one of the greatest shows of all time, they still manage to do drama and show the things they're talking about, but it's self-contained episodes. This took way too long to show everything. And the payoff, we're going to get to the payoff, but the payoff was fucking, I mean, I was on the one hand, I was like, we called it, but on the other hand, it was such bullshit. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, I think the streaming thing is, yeah, I mean, just to that point, yeah, I mean, when True Detective season 1 came out, I watched it. I didn't watch it on HBO. It was called HBO Go at the time. I watched it on there, and I think I watched season 1 in like 2 sittings over the course of, I don't know, like 48 hours. And or less, something like that, and was just absolutely blown away. And yeah, I mean, there was other kind of shows going on like that, and that was kind of coming out of the sort of the I guess second golden era or renaissance of TV, if you will. You know, when you had these great shows, it really started with The Sopranos, and then you know, from there, I mean, you had some really good shows come out of that. You know, you had like Mad Men, you had your Justified, Longmire, some of these shows that were just, you know, fantastic, very well written, well acted, well directed, all of that. Yeah, and then the streaming came along, and that's it. I mean, it's just now it's just oversaturated, and there's too much. And I guess, I mean, is HBO a network? I don't know if it's technically a network, but anyway, what I'm getting at.
Let me break in here because I realized one thing while you were talking. So the highest point of television, I think, especially in terms of these shows or a long story, would be, I mean, hot take, it's Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad is 5 episodes. It mirrors the kind of 5 acts of a Shakespearean play. It has a total hero villain, as Harold Bloom calls him, and he's a kind of Macbethian figure, and he invites, you know, our sympathy, and we like Walter, but he's really the biggest villain, as Jesse says, right? But it's so well done, and Vince Gilligan from Midlothian, Virginia, from near me, and it also knew when to end, you know. But the difference is that show is from the old days of television, because that's you have to wait every week to watch the episode. You can't fast forward. It's on every Sunday or whatever it was. And then when I watched it, it was on Netflix, and I could watch the whole thing. I watched the whole thing in like 2 days when it was snowing one week. And I didn't sleep. I watched the whole five seasons. But the difference is that you can fast forward, you can stop, you can pause, and you can, you know, you don't have to watch it. Like, this is like a TiVo thing. It started with kind of TiVo. But then when studios started making shows that were the whole season and that was released at once, like with House of Cards, that was really great because, you know, you don't have to wait. You know, Norm Macdonald had a thing about this where he was talking about Lost with like Jimmy Kimmel or something, and he was like, which is, you know, an ABC network, ABC show. And he was like, I like it that I can fast forward through the ads, and then I can fast forward to the next show. And Jimmy Kimmel, as a, you know, trying to advertise for the network, is like, no, I like the cliffhanger, you know, I like and Norm's like, yeah, I like that if I like got nothing fucking better to do. I like to get on with the show, you know. Who likes to do that? So that's great. But this they're going back into making you wait, because for one reason is, I think it's a weakness with the show. They know people are not going to be addicted to the show because of the story. And so this one is like, I don't know. I think it really took a turn with the show, and I don't know what happened. Maybe they made the show and then the whole thing is fucking, I'm sorry for the language, but when it's all done, I did not expect that they would really it would be that bad with being poisoned in terms of the messaging. Right. And that's what it ended up being. So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like yeah, it's like, what do you even say? We're not reviewing. Yeah. I'm trying not to review the show here. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I was kind of, Leaves of Grass said something earlier when I said something about it only being 6 episodes. I can't interact in the chat because I'm on my phone, but yeah, said something earlier about like, oh yeah, something like, oh yeah, it was only 6 episodes, spared us the misery or something to that effect, which I thought was pretty funny. And yeah, I mean, it just seemed like clearly they didn't have an. Now, I will say, when you think about a show like I didn't like Breaking Bad. I tried watching it. I just couldn't get into it. It wasn't my thing. But I mean, with a show like that, with a show like Justified, which was 6 seasons, and I think the showrunner for Justified, if I remember correctly, said from the beginning, like we're doing 6 seasons because we have a story to tell, and we have 6 seasons to do it in, and that's it. And so I think that's good and I think Longmire was kind of the same way, is that you get these shows where. You have a story, you can tell it in a certain number of seasons, and then that's it. And you don't have to drag it out. And then you can also, that instead of just saying, oh, well, we're going to go out there and just see what happens. It's like, no, it's all kind of contained. And so, I mean, props to them, actually, to the people who made this show, to Night Country, for actually, doing, like, if they would have tried to drag this out into 8 episodes. So I think it's actually, this may sound odd, but it's actually to their credit that they did just go for the 6 episodes, because if they went for the 8, then it would have been like, okay, this is just not worth it. And I think people would have lost interest. It would have been a slog. It would have been boring. It would have been, I mean, like season 3, for example, True Detective season 3, they could have cut probably a full, at least 1 episode worth of material out of that show, and they could have done 7 episodes. What I mean by that is, it's like, how many shots do we need of this guy, standing in his bathrobe in his house, looking down the hallway with a disoriented look on his face? It was like, we don't need 20 shots of this that are like 20-30 seconds each, throughout the episode. Like, it just took up so much time, and there was so much driving around, and it's like, you could have cut a good full ep. Now, I like season 3. I'm not bashing it. I like it, but that was one of the weak points. Is it's like, you don't have, even though seasons 1 and 2 did 8 episodes, you don't have to do that. And I think with this, I mean, I know that the guy Nick Pizzolatto, who did season 1, I think he was actually supposed to come back and do season 4, because he had an idea, but then he decided that he wasn't going to do it because he was going to do something else with that idea. And I don't know what he's going to do. Hopefully it's something interesting. I'm sure it will be, but it was kind of a bummer that it was like, man, I wish he would have. Maybe he'll come back if they do season 5. I don't know. I sure hope so.
Where am I? Where am I? I'm in my bathrobe. Where am I? Why am I holding this knife to my throat? Oh, it's my hand. Oh, I was alert. I was alert. It's not my hand. Street lamps. I'm in the street lamps.
Yeah, that's basically way too much of that. Now, that was the perfect amount of that. See if we
yeah. That's enough.
Yeah, that's all we needed right there. Hey, HBO, call this guy.
Right. Where am I? Why am I standing halfway in a street lamp? In half darkness, half light. Do you get it? It's symbolism. I have a dark psyche. I'm in a labyrinth. I'm in a maze. We get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I like season 3 a lot. Wow, I'm out of breath just from walking 3 feet.
So
yeah.
To get in, and now it's been like a week and a half since I watched, or like a week since I watched it's episode 5, and I'm trying to remember. That was the one. Okay, yeah, that's the one. I can't remember exactly what happened at the beginning. Okay, so Liz Danvers, Jodie Foster's character. So they found this guy, Otis Heiss, right? He's this guy who. So that was at the end of episode 4, right? Where they found Otis, and he was the guy who had mapped these ice caves.
Yeah,
he was
hanging out. He was a hobo demon hanging out in the factory, shooting up in the freezing cold. Hiding from the visible demons, right?
Right. Yes, hiding from the visible demons, wearing Raymond Clark, who was the guy who had one of the guys who disappeared. We talked about this in the first one, but he was wearing his coat. And because originally they thought it was Raymond Clark, this guy they were after, the one scientist at Salal that they couldn't find. And so they found there was a surveillance image, or not a surveillance image, somebody who was working out by this old industrial, like abandoned industrial center factory, I don't know, whatever it was. Foundry, I don't know. Some people were working out that way, and they got a photo of this guy that they thought was Raymond Clark. So they go and they hunt him down, and then like it ends episode 4 ends with Eve, the other cop, which they weren't detectives, which that's kind of irritated me. They were just like regular. It was a chief of police, and there was like a street cop.
That's a good point. They weren't detectives. What the fuck? I just realized that's a good point, dude. It's called True Detective. These are false detectives.
Yes, these are not real. It's like
not
a slacker.
even detectives.
Yeah, they're just regular cops.
I wonder if anybody in the writer's room like brought that up. Like, I just got something to bring up. Are we going to address the fact that these aren't detectives? And they were like, "You're fired."
Yeah, you're done.
Mm-hmm.
You'll never work in this town again.
Yeah. Also, I'll say that the guy who played that guy, was it Otis? That guy. First of all, he was Willem Dafoe's like beta alter.
Mm-hmm.
Like he played a good, like he was playing Willem Dafoe playing the character. So that was pretty cool. I guess. But also, like, that if you're looking for the weird like hobo demons hanging out somewhere, they're probably going to be in the old factory, because like I saw this video this week about scariest real videos or whatever. And I somehow found, I was like looking for something like this, and I found it, and it was this guy. They have people who like raid old houses and and they make videos and stuff, old factories. Well, this is this one guy, and he went into the old Westinghouse factory in like Pennsylvania, where they filmed the scene of Black Widow from one of the Avengers movies, when she's getting interrogated inside this like broken down factory. It's that factory, but it's deteriorated even more. And as the guy's going downstairs, he goes in, he starts hearing things. And in the corner of the basement, this huge basement, there's a guy crouching down, staring like at the wall in the corner. And it's fucking so wild, dude. And it's not like, oh, this looks like a setup. It's like, what the fuck is this guy doing here? He's like, hello. And then like he sees a bullet casing on the ground. There's gunshots outside, and he turns around, tries to make his way back up. And then the video, when you watch it back later, like as he's turning a corner, the guy is standing right there, like in a shadow. And it's very weird. So of course, Otis Toole, right? Otis Toole is there waiting for his friend Henry Lee Lucas to show up. But all he's got is a bunch of heroin and some demons inside the place, and somebody's old coat. So of course, we're led on like all these red herrings, and that's a par for the course with the show. But like, I'm not trying to skip ahead or is this ahead or behind, but the scene where the guy we were talking about this last night. The guy was revived. The guy that was in the Twist and Shout corpsicle.
Yes.
And they revived him in the hospital. That was total bullshit.
Yeah.
So can you remind the folks at home what happened in that scene?
Yeah, so I think that was the end of episode 3. So there was this one guy they found when they were defrosting all the corpses. They found this guy was still alive. And so they took him into the hospital, and he's been, sedated or whatever. He's missing, like most of his legs, one of his arms, one of his hands is all like black and frostbitten and rotting or whatever. It's a pretty gruesome scene. The guy's eyes are all jacked up. It's a pretty gruesome scene. So Danvers and Eve go to talk to this guy, and he's just like in and out of consciousness, just screaming, yelling, causing a ruckus. And so then Danvers is like, okay, what happened? Who did this? And the guy's like, oh, she's awake. Like, we woke her. Yeah. And then there's a fight that kicks off between a bunch of hunters and the hospital staff in the lobby.
Yeah.
And so Liz Danvers, Jodie Foster's character, runs out to go try to break up the fights. Like, oh yeah, what's she gonna do against a bunch of like backwoods hunters? These are like burly, large people, and I mean it's kind of ridiculous. It's funny because when she gets there, the other cops and the hospital staff are fighting these guys, and she's just kind of standing there, not doing anything, and she throws somebody some handcuffs. I was like, okay, that's probably pretty pretty accurate for somebody her size. It's not going to be like getting into a brawl like that. But anyway, so this guy then sits up in bed, and almost as if he like levitate, not like levitating, but he sort of like, it's not like he's sitting, his torso just sort of like raises up, and he turns, his voice changes, he gets this kind of demonic sort of aura to him, and he points at Eve, who's still in the room, and he tells her in this he says in this like demonic voice, he's like, your mother's waiting for you.
Yeah.
And then excuse me. So that's how episode 3, but yeah, I mean, it's like, okay, maybe if somebody survived that, it's possible, but would that have been the way that goes down? I mean, it was too absurd that this guy, if anybody survived that he would be. And here's just one other thing I'll say about this that irritates me about this show is that, and we'll get to the conclusion of it, but what irritated me about this season is, again, in the first 3 seasons, there were a lot of unanswered questions, right? Yeah. There were things that were left, there were loose ends, there were things that, we didn't get answers to. Some of it was sort of obvious, was pointed out, like the end of season 1 where, McConaughey says, oh, we didn't get them all. Like there's more people in this cult that are out there. They only got 3 of them. And so, but then with this, and then there's, same with seasons 2 and 3, but then with this season, it's like everything gets tied up in a nice bow, but except for there's all this like supernatural kind of stuff. We don't know what's real. We don't know what's not. And then it's so, and then like those are all the loose ends, the unanswered questions.
Yeah. A lot of red herrings, and we find out that, I don't know, God, Otis Toole.
Otis Toole shooting up in the abandoned salary.
Yeah, he's like, leave me alone. I'm just trying to have fun in here, gathering up scraps from the smelting facility.
Yeah. Yes, Melly says Donald Sutherland pointing and screaming.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Invasion of the Body Snatchers, right?
Yeah.
He's like, except he's in the hospital bed, and he's like, and you're like, where did you get this long knife? Why are you blind? No, he's snowblind. He's snowblind in there, but we find out that okay, so they want to go back to the hole in the ground, right, which has been covered up by like they exploded the rocks, but they still have a camera out there. And then the lady from the facility, the lady who owns the mine, one of the only like decent looking women, and I'm sorry, but like I don't know, she's kind of fine, right? Yeah. I guess she shows up to the place, and she's like, I want to ask you some questions. And then she gets Christopher Eccleston, and they bring in Jodie Foster, and she's like, Dr. Lecter, listen, why did you bring me here? I have something to tell you. And she's figured out through, I forget whom, that that the geographical studies of the pollution, the climate studies are of the pollution are sponsored by a front company who's actually funded by the mining company, right? By the Total Industries or whatever.
Right.
So of course it was the Zoomer cop who figured that all out. And he's like, I don't know how to use a computer. And she's like, you're a Zoomer. Just get on Reddit and ask your friends, right? Get on Instagram and Twitter and talk to the homies, talk to the schizo posters and figure out the Gateway Project. And also who's funding the study. So he does it, right? And
Right.
he figures it out. And it takes like 3 steps to figure out who the funding is from.
Yeah, it takes note. Oh, sorry, not to interrupt.
Yeah, and it's not even, more like 4chan, Melly says. And it's not even, it's not even like a hidden, this would be a thing. This is normal, right? Of course, they have to be paid for by someone, and the industry will often, have front companies that do this, then ends up doing the thing, but it's a conflict of interest. And then she tells it to the boss, and then the lady who owns the mine, and the lady who owns the mine's like, so fucking what? So what? Prove anything, right? And she's like, yeah, but you've been lying about the amount of pollution, and there's been stillbirths and all this stuff. And she's like, well, we got a factory and we're funding half the town. And that's my problem with the end of the show, is that like there's something there. I guess we'll get to it, but there's something that's completely thrown out of the meaning of the show in the end.
Yeah.
Right. Which is actually not a happy ending. It is happy, but it's not a happy ending. But anyway, yeah. So they go to the mine, and they're going to make their way through. And I'll say that we were on the right track as far as some of the mythology was concerned, because obviously they took a cue for the setting of the underground tunnel and the ice caves is obviously has to do with whatever the myths in their pantheon that we covered last week. Like there's a whole demon beast that lives in ice caves, like with whale bones all around, and like she's the one who like hypnotizes people when they get close to the sea and then feeds on their souls, right? Uh-oh, did Matty drop out? Oh no, he's right there. Uh-oh. Is it just me? Am I still here? I'm still live? It's just me. All right, it's just me. It's my show now. It's my show. So we'll see if Matty gets back in. I guess he dropped out. So look. So this is my show now. This is me. I'm Digital Minefield now. I'm going to take this. Oh, there he is. Okay. Okay. We got your video. Did your laptop start up?
Yes, my laptop started working, so we are good to go. We're back in business.
Damn, I was just saying, I hijacked the channel. Now it's mine. So, all right, good. Well, that's good. I'm glad it didn't shut down completely. So anyway, they that took a lot of, I don't know, we got a lot of the setting from what we were talking about last week with the pantheon and the mythology and the ice caves and all that. But then they decided to go with a different direction. And episode 5, I mean, episode 5 had probably 10 minutes of relevant content in it. The rest of it was story, sort of ancillary to the driving narrative. So I don't remember what else happened in episode 5.
Well, one thing. Oh, Jason says I'm grainy. Hopefully, y'all can hear me. Okay,
yeah, we can hear you.
It's not too bad. So one of the things this is something that irritated me. So when at the end of episode 4, they find Otis. They find Otis Toole, shooting up in his abandoned foundry or whatever it was, and so then Liz goes looking for Eve, and she's like, "Oh, Eve, like, where are you?" She's running around trying to find her, and then she finds her. Eve is like on her knees, looking sort of dazed, and she's bleeding out of one of her ears, and that is the same thing we saw with the people who got in this mining thing. Like they're bleeding out of the ears, and so we're led to believe like, oh, has something. The same thing has happened to her. Well, then it comes into episode 5 and she's totally normal, and they never addressed what happened at the end of episode 4. And that's something that always annoys me in shows, when there's something that obvious, like, okay, this is important, and then nothing, right? Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, then they go see their because Liz is just like having sex with every guy in town, especially all the married ones. And so,
which one's Liz?
That's Danvers, Jodie Foster's character.
Dr. Lecter. Okay.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so she goes to this like he's like a geography or whatever he is, biology teacher in town at the high school.
I forgot that guy. They even walk into his house and he's like, "What are you doing here? I'm married. I have a family." And she's like, "You shut your face. You shut your face. I'll shoot it right off."
And I think it was Christmas Eve when they roll up to this poor guy's house.
Yes.
And so
he's like, "Get the fuck out of here."
Yeah, and his wife even comes in and runs him off. Was like, you got to go. And so they're trying to find out these ice caves, right? Because Otis is the one who mapped them.
Yeah.
And so then he goes to the lighthouse, right? The same place that Eve's sister went before she offed herself. And so he's drying out there. And so then Liz goes to get him out of there because she's like, okay, we need you to show us how to get into the ice caves. I think this is after they find out that the mine had like blown something up and there's all these rocks over the entrance to the ice cave. And so then she goes to get him out. And so actually we need to backtrack because so John Hawkes, I can't think of his name. Henry, I think was his name. Henry
Lee Lucas.
Yes, Henry Lee Lucas, who had been, he got stiffed by he got scammed by this, so-called Russian woman that who was supposed to be coming to Alaska to, be with him after he sent her all of his money that he had available. And so then he meets in this remote area with the lady who runs the mine. And so we find out that he was supposed to be, so he moved Annie's body, right? It's revealed that Annie was the woman who was found, who was protesting the mine, the indigenous woman who was protesting the mine. She gets found in that shipping container. And then we find out, because then they have that video where it shows that Annie was in the ice caves and then she was killed there. So then we find out that Henry moved her body somewhere. We don't know from where exactly. Well, we know it's from the ice cave. And then we find out he moved it. And then he was supposed to get something out of it. And then he was supposed to get the chief of police job, which is supposed to be a big deal. It's like, we were talking about, BLA and I were talking about this last night. I was like, oh, so it's such a big deal. You want to get the chief of police job. It's worth committing multiple felonies in order to get the chief of police job in Ennis, Alaska, which has like 3,000 people in it. Yeah. And, it's some and I'm not knocking, far-flung places. I'm just saying this is it's not like you're going to be police commissioner of New York City, right? Like this is so weird. Is this guy just such a complete loser that he's like, oh yeah, let me commit all these felonies in order to, to get this chief of police, the much coveted chief of police job of Ennis, Alaska.
Yeah. It's not like there's like a huge black market that they're running or they have a lot. I mean, I guess it's supposed to be indicative of something we mentioned last time, which is like the Alaska pipeline and all the kind of boomtown violence that can occur. And there is a fair amount of that in town, but it is weird that if you're going to have a lot of drunken and drug related violence and people off work from, welders working on the damn Alaskan pipeline with, saber-toothed walruses coming after them all day. They need to blow off steam, that you have these two sheriffs who are the ones to keep it locked down, right? You would need Brian Dennehy in Rambo 1, right? That's the guy you would need to hold down the town, right? You need like, I don't know. You need what's his name in Stranger Things? You need like a big burly fellow with a walrus mustache to hold it down, right? But I guess that's the way they design it. And the other problem is that the mine, the mine employs half of the people in the town. They say 50% of the people, provides for all the education, all the schools, all the stuff. And so everybody's going to be loyal to having a job, and they're kept just above poverty, like in this shitty place. I'm sure it's beautiful. I'd love to go there. Not when all this is going on, but I'm sure it's a beautiful place, and there's something to be said for living out in the outlands, for sure. But if you're going to live in the outlands, you'd want to be more like the dudes that they go and in the first 4 episodes, when they go out and they find the nomads. And we were talking about this last night. Like, one of the only admirable characters in this is the guy that they go looking for, and he's inside his little shed. Right. And they knock on the door and he says, you can't come in here without a warrant. Right. And they're like, oh, we're just going to come in anyway. And he's like, shh, do you know where you are? You cannot come in here. Right. And then he tries to warn him. He's like, don't go looking for that shit. And also we got nothing to do with it. Right. But he's one of the only like bros in the show that is loyal to like the system that they have. And everybody else is kind of, the thing is with these shows that the amount of lying that goes on and like ulterior motives gets to an annoying point, because it's kind of like in The West Wing. It's like I get the artistic choice of having people moving down hallways when you're questioning them, because it shows movement. It shows like we're moving in the story. It's in the viewer's mind. We're constantly moving forward in the narrative. But in reality, people don't do that, right? When they come investigate you for murder, or they ask for, when somebody comes by and you're working at the foundry and they ask about, oh, do you know this person who was killed? You probably, it doesn't matter who it is, but they probably stop and they go, what are you talking? Like, you're saying that person is gone? They were just here. Like, they express concern, or, they stop what they're doing for, I think the mind can wait for 2 seconds, or the convenience store, you can stop like loading the toilet paper on the shelf for 2 seconds while you go, oh, Linda's gone. What the fuck? Like, what are you talking about? I'm hearing about it from you. They're questioning all the people that might have known her, not suspects, but just people that might have known her. And that's one of the problems with the show. And they even do that in this, even though it's cold as hell, right? And everybody's trying to stay inside, but they're still always moving. They're always, like, when they go and they talk to the, spoiler alert, when they go and they talk to the group of Consuelas, right? And when they're doing, remember when they're doing the birth ritual? Okay. It's like, I understand they're not going to stop doing that. Fuck them. We got to deliver the baby. Right. But in other scenes, they're all sitting around and it's like, no, I still have to make the tea. Right. And it's like, sit the fuck down and stop making the tea for a second. Right. You can answer our questions.
Yeah, that's something. No, I agree with you on that. And I realize, obviously, like we all know, movies and TV are not real life, but that's something that, and yeah, it's like, okay, we see movement because, people complain like, oh, there's just people sitting there talking. But it's like, if you ever try to have a conversation with somebody while you're walking, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
Or trying to, if you're at work and, somebody, if you're like, I used to have jobs stocking shelves. And when I was doing that, if somebody came up to talk to me, whether it was a customer, another employee, management, whatever, I would always stop what I was doing, because for one, it's kind of rude that if somebody's coming to talk to you and you're just like, oh no, I'm just doing this over here, I'm not even going to look, I'm just may glance over at you occasionally. It's like, who does that? Like, normal people don't just keep doing what they're doing. Like working, stocking shelf, like, oh, I'm just going to do this. And, I don't know. It just comes off as very rude. But
it's like when you're talking to somebody on the phone and you can hear that they're clearly, like hammering a shelf together and doing the dishes and loading the laundry and fixing their car.
Yeah.
I appreciate that we're talking and stuff, but I can't handle the in the background. Like, what did you say? I'll talk to you later. No, I didn't. What? Yeah, it gets to be annoying.
Yeah, it's very irritating. But yeah, so basically this woman, I don't know her name, the mine woman, is telling Henry, whatever they call him, Hank and Henry, well, just for the sake of consistency, Henry, the John Hawkes character, who's an incredible actor, by the way, one of the greatest living actors. I mean, him and Ray McKinnon are like, I think those guys are probably the two best around right now. But anyway, it's interesting because, yeah, he's sort of it's sort of alluded to that he has some kind of criminal past. I mean, obviously he's in law enforcement, but he's sort of alluded to the fact that he's willing to do dirty work and has probably done a lot of it in the past, because this mine woman is like, you got to get rid of Otis, because she's saying we can't let Liz and Eve find out like what's in the ice caves.
Yeah.
And so she basically is telling him like, oh, well, Otis is a junkie, and, junkies die all the time. They always, they'll overdose. So basically what she's telling, she's like, oh, you didn't do anything. She's basically, and then she he's a very like beta sort of cucked kind of character. And in that she's like, oh, tell me that that I didn't tell you to kill him. And he's like, you didn't tell me to kill him. And so she's basically telling him like, no, if you want, because she was supposed to get, because she's, the one with all the money, she was supposed to get him the chief of police job. Well, she said, oh, well, I couldn't get that for you. Liz got it because of, bureaucratic red tape and all that. And so she's basically holding this over his head that, oh, if you want this, then you have to, you have to take this guy out. And I mean, it's pretty clear. I think it's heavily implied that he's probably done a lot of dirty work for her and probably other people in the past, which is not unheard of and actually probably pretty common among cops. And so he, just kind of goes along with it. And so he's going to go. So basically what she's saying is you're going to go shoot up this guy with a massive, dose of heroin or whatever, and take him out that way. And then nobody's going to question it. It's like, oh, well, yeah, he just, left rehab and relapsed and that's that. And now it's just, it's just another dead person, of normal causes, did it to himself. No big deal.
Yeah. John Hawkes is definitely shifty. He's a shifty character in this.
Mm-hmm.
And have you ever seen there's an American Dad episode where Roger becomes a cop and Stan is surveilling the docks, and Roger makes it through the academy, and his first job as a cop is he goes down to the docks and he's like, where's all the money? All right, you're going to give me 50% of this now. And Stan's like, you've been on the job for 20 minutes, right? That's John Hawkes in this, right?
Yes, that is 100% his character.
But like when she's getting Otis Toole right out of the place and they go back to the house, he's like, there's a scene where he goes, oh, this is what he's like. He goes, I'm only going to tell you if you give me something special, right? And she's like, I'm not getting you heroin. And he goes, nah. he curls up and turns the other way in the bed, and he's like, and then she's like, all right, fine. So then she comes back and she goes, all right, I got you what you want. And he's like, give it to me now. And she's like, I'm not going to let you shoot up in my house. And he's like, where the fuck else am I going to do it? And she's like, fine. And then he comes out of the back, he's chasing the dragon. He goes in there and tinfoils it. And then he comes back into the room. And that's when John Hawkes shows up, right? And John Hawkes is like, hey, I heard you have Otis Toole in the bathroom. Yeah, well, I need to take care of this guy, if you know what I mean. And she's like, take care of him. And he's like, yeah, take care of him.
Yeah, she's like, how'd you know he was here?
Yeah. And then the son comes around the corner with his gun, right? And this is the worst part. This I really didn't. So John Hawkes is like got his gun and he's like, I'm going to, and he's like raising it, and the son's like, no, bam, and then smokes his dad in the head.
Yes, because his dad.
We were talking about this, and we're like, why did you do that? That was your dad, first of all, right? Second of all, Dr. Lecter is annoying as fuck.
Yeah,
right. She's treated you terribly in this. She's an awful cop. She was involved in the last thing that you know about. She's broken up your marriage. Your dad saved you in the ice.
Yeah.
So that's how you're gonna repay him. And then after that, she's like, oh, well, we got to go continue to investigate the murder. You also have to clean this up. Make sure you take it to Boomer Shaman Woman. She's going to show you how to dump the body. Right. Yeah. Just a weird series of events.
Yeah. Cause I mean, like Otis Toole gets his head, caved in with a bullet. Yeah. And, I don't know, that to me was, and look, people do weird things for bad reasons all the time, but to me, it didn't make a whole lot of sense that it's like, okay, dude, so you got fleeced by some scammer. All right, that sucks. That sucks being broke, losing all your available money. I get it. Yeah. But I mean, I've never been in that situation, but I can imagine it would suck to be in that situation. Yeah. And then it's like, okay, yeah, so you have this woman who's like, oh, I can get you the chief of police of Ennis, Alaska job. And he's like, nah. But it's like, you're going to go. I mean, this is a guy who just, like I said, it's implied he'd done dirty work, but it was never implied that he was a killer. And so for him to, just roll up in there and then, shoot this guy in the head in her house, and then he was going to shoot Liz,
Right.
It just seemed like an escalation. That's like even the factors outside of that didn't really make a whole lot of sense because it seemed like an extreme escalation in behavior. It's just like for no good reason.
Yeah, not to
It
mention,
just it didn't the factors outside of that. Yeah, I don't know. It was just weird, and it was a disappointing way to see that character go out because it was sort of ambiguous as to, okay, is he, a good guy? Is he bad? Like what's going on? Yeah, because like you said, he's shifty, but we don't know, is this guy like a villain? Like what's going on? And I was pretty disappointed that's the way that they, kind of things ended for him.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, we know that there's corporate collusion, and there's and that there's some sort of metaphysical occult thing going on here, but it's taken them 5 episodes into the 6th episode to really close any to close it off at all. So in the first 3 seasons, the dark spiritual stuff deals with a specific issue. And so they're driven to figure out what it is because it's plaguing their lives and it's causing them to break psychically.
Right.
It's we also have in the other 3 seasons, we have time jumps. So we have like the thing that happened in the past, then we have the present, and then we have like the nearer present, and we see an age difference in all the characters. Like you were saying with old man Mahershala Ali, like wandering through the street lamps, and trying to remember the past, right?
Right.
Or in the first season, the obvious things with the 2 characters trying to solve the case for a long time. But in this one, the only time jumps are going back to like 6 months ago or whatever. And we get flashbacks of when the kid was saved by his dad in the snow, in the ice. And we get the things alluded to about the families and stuff. But we're going to see that that's not tied up at all. In fact, that's the red herring in the show. Right. As if those things matter. And I guess, the night country thing, it's like what they could have done is to have 40 days of night where the darkest elements of the characters come out and they start to really lose track of reality and time because there's no light. It's all darkness. And they do that with some of the characters, but those characters are already broken. So like the sister that goes crazy and walks out in the sea, she was already broken by something that happened to her in the past, which was like 30 seconds of one episode. So that was a red herring because we're supposed to think this deals with the creeper stuff in the first 3 episodes. And we know that is, but that's not the function of this particular season. And that pissed me off, right? Because otherwise, what do we have? Like, what's the crime? Well, we have the lady that showed up in the shipping container. Right. And that's tied off with John Hawkes because he's the one who moved the body. So we don't know what happened to her yet. We're going to find that out. We have the characters continuously dying from like walking out into the ocean who seem to be schizophrenic or demonically possessed. We've got guys at the mining facility and at the science research lab who we don't even know anyway because it's a self-contained place. And they say they never come into town. So they go straight from there into the Outlands. But then we found out that one of the guys is still alive out there, and one of the other guys is in the factory, so they're alive. And then we had the guy, the corpsicle in the snow, and one of those guys is alive. So what happened to the other guys? Well, we get that tied up with the dumbass who wakes up out of his psychic haze fugue with his eyes all milky and says, "She's coming for you. She's awake." And you're like, why didn't you say no? Can I say what it was?
Yeah, we can just go ahead. I mean, we'll work that way eventually, but let's just go ahead.
Why didn't you say, "Oh no, there's a cult of Boomer Consuelas after me. They're the ones who made us do this." Right?
Yeah.
They pointed guns at us. They almost killed. Not she, not one, not she's awake, not. And why would you even use that language when it refers to the thing that you did in the underground research lab, right?
Right.
Which is the reason that you call this star-shaped wounds is that later we're going to figure out, well, should we get to it?
So let's run through some of the other just kind of timeline. We'll get through this quickly. So I keep mixing up season and episode. Episode 5 ends with them. So there's a big blizzard coming in.
Yeah.
So there's a big blizzard rolling in, and so they tell Freshman, whatever Henry's son's name was, he like to clean up, get rid of the bodies.
Zippy,
and so
that's his name, Zippy.
Zippy, yeah, Zippy. So he has to clean up. He has to get rid of these bodies, and so then Liz and Eve are going to go out to. They're going to go out to the ice caves because they found some other way to get it. Do you remember how they found? Somebody told them, and I can't remember how they found another way to get into the ice caves that wasn't the place that had the rocks like dynamited over it.
Yeah. Willem Dafoe Beta was going to tell them where that was. He's the one who drew the maps.
That's right. So did he actually tell them?
Well, he showed them kind of where it was, but he said that you need me out there to guide you through it.
Right.
And to tell you how to actually get in. So the way they actually got in was by accident. And that's supposed to tie up how the sister who said this, Melly, I think Melly said, she thought the sister was a drug addict. Yeah. Well, I mean, she was clearly like on heroin and meth or something like that, mixed, but that was a result of her mental issues dealing with the trauma from the past, right? Mm-hmm. With her mom. And then that was supposed to tie in with how they found the girl with the guy sitting in the chair. And that's why Jodie Foster and that's why Dr. Lecter and what's her name were split up, right? Because we found out that the guy actually didn't unalive himself. It was actually obviously one of them because he was left-handed, right? Or he was
yes.
Left-handed, so this is, but he was shot in the right temple, right?
That's right. Yeah.
The guy who they showed up and he was like this.
Yeah.
Right. He was that guy. And it's
he was the guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say like, okay, bye. Yeah, fuck this guy. But that was supposed to tie up with what had happened to Eve and her sister. Right. It was the reason she broke was because that's what happened to her when she was younger. That's alluded to.
Mm-hmm.
And then the way that they found the ice caves was supposed to be a reflection of how Zippy had fallen through the ice when he was young, and Henry Lee Lucas Hawks saved him out of the ice. And then that happens to them again in this part. So you would think, by the way, that two detectives out in the North Pole, Alaska, walking out on the ice would know like where they should and shouldn't go.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You would think they would have especially if they were raised there, but also why are they breaking through the ice? Isn't it like minus 4 million degrees? Why is the ice? Oh, is it because it's the ocean? It's the sea?
I think so. I don't think it was the ocean. It's very hard to tell. The landscape was interesting because it's just like ice everywhere. There's ice over the water. There's ice, and you don't know like what's where. And so with just to backtrack for a second with what you were saying about the guy who they shot. So when we were talking about, there was that kind of flashback that they showed incrementally. We learned more and more about as the season went on. When Liz and Eve had originally been partners, they had gone. There was this guy who'd been, beating his girlfriend, and this had happened over and over. So they finally go out to the house and they find that she is deceased on the floor.
Yeah.
And the guy, he's just like sitting there and he has this really creepy look when he turns around. And so then Eve shoots the guy in the head.
Yeah.
And so
very quickly.
Yeah, like very quickly. She's just like bam, execution. Yeah. And so when Liz gets taken into that meeting with her, I guess, boss or whatever, Ted Eccleston, was that his name? Ted Eccleston, and then the woman who like owns the mine, they tell her like, oh no, these people.
What's her name? Winifred what's her name? Winifred McHotferson?
Something like that.
Winifred McHotferson. Yeah.
Yeah. And so so they tell her, "Oh no, there's no case here because the scientists died of natural causes. It was just it was something, I don't remember what the term was, but so then her Ted Eccleston's character tells Liz, he's like, no, like I know about the guy that they shot, and then
I love that you're calling him Ted Eccleston.
I can't think of the characters. Is that actually his name? I don't know.
Yes, let's call him that.
Is that actually the actor's name? Or is this a joke that I'm unaware of?
Who cares? That's what we're calling him.
Okay, whatever his name, I don't know. Liz's boss. So he tells her, and then we find out that the freshman, the John Hawkes character's son, he figures out, because he's going and looking over all these case files and photos and everything. He figures out that they basically staged it to make that look that this guy who Eve had executed, that he had offed himself. And so, but then it turns out he was left-handed, and so the way the ballistics and everything worked, it didn't make sense, because he would have, I guess, shot himself the other way or something. I don't know, whatever. But they figured out that but I think he was shot from the left side. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
I thought he was too. Yeah,
because she was standing on his left when she shot him, so that would make sense. But anyway, so for whatever reason, I said, gosh, who wrote this show? But as we find out, and then after this, then we hear this kid start crying.
Yeah.
And because they're showing it in flashbacks, and we don't know what happened to the kid, whose kid this is. We don't know any of these things. But we later. So anyway, they go out to these ice caves, and they're hacking through the ice with an ice pick, and then so they go down into the caves, and they're kind of wandering around, and then Eve falls down, like 6 feet or whatever it is, far enough to where they can't get out, and then Liz stupidly is leaning on the same place at the edge of this hole. It's like, I'm going to go get help. And then boom, of course she falls through, because we could see that coming. It was coming around the corner wearing tap shoes. It was so obvious. We knew she was about to fall. And so then they're both trapped down there. Oh crap. Now we're stuck, because actually when they get in originally, they're trying to find where to go. And then Eve is like, oh, it's this way. And Liz is like, oh, what is your, native voodoo magic telling you that? And she's like, no, I know it's this way. So then they're wandering around. Well, then they come upon this underground. So then they see Raymond Clark, the guy that they were after. He
appears like this.
Right?
Yeah. So you're telling me. So all right. So you're telling me, first of all, these two detectives don't have GP, whatever they got on them, like they got something that's tracking them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which okay, we're not totally in Minority Report yet, I guess, with people with Neuralinks, tracking their exact place, but like you're out on the nowhere, you're out in the outer zone, right? And people need to know where you are when you go out, because you could fall in an ice crevasse. Mm-hmm. And then they literally do that. They don't have rope. They've got no gear, right? They probably don't even have their phones on them. Even if their phones could get them. So when they fall in that thing, it's like, oh no, you're really fucked.
You're done.
Down for 4,000 years, right? But there just happens to be, they didn't look around and see the doorway in the ice where the guy comes out and is standing there,
Yeah.
So at first we kind of think, when that appears, we think, oh, this is a demon, right? But we see it's the guy, right? And he scurries away down through the ice canyon, through the crevasse, right? And then we see a ladder. We see Jacob's ladder, right? But it's the ladder from Lost going into the Dharma Initiative hatch, right? So they climb up the thing, and then where are they? Oh, they're all of a sudden inside the science facility. I thought they were like 1 million miles from the science facility.
So they actually, they were chasing this guy, and then they wind up in this place where there's an underground.
Oh yeah, first
it's basically a science lab underground, and then they realize, like, oh crap, what's going on down here? And then then Liz sees something.
I wish they had said that, Listen, Dr. Lecter, I got a question. What's going on down here? We got all these tubes and drills, right? I know these guys are doing underground mining and boring, and there's like boring samples like on a rack. But why are there drill bits and bandsaws? Why is there blood everywhere? Well, there's not blood everywhere, but there was at one point. Yeah.
Yeah, so, and there's one of the things that, if you'll indulge me, folks, I have to rant about the spirals again. We're going to get some. You knew you were going to get another spiral rant. So Liz sees something, and she tells Eve, or maybe it was the other one. I don't remember. They're like, oh, because this is what I'm about to say. This is the thumbnail for the video. So if you've seen the thumbnail for the video, this is what I'm talking about. So she sees something over this table, like where they're doing the research or whatever, and she looks up, and then there's this way too long of a shot of panning back and forth of their faces of them looking up. It's like, just show it already. We don't need 10 seconds of you just showing zoom up, close up on their faces. And so they're looking at this thing, and it's like this spiral. It looks like a snake, but it's got like a skeleton. It's really long. You can see its, backbone and all that. So it looks like basically a snake with a backbone, and it's spiraled around in the ice, like going up into the ice. And so that is a callback to what we see where in one of the earlier episodes where they said that, this spiral symbol, it's older than the ice. And so then it's like, that's what they're talking about. But here's the problem. And this is a danger you run into when you have someone else working with, when you have someone working with source material that was written by someone else. Because in season 1, we talked about this. Well, we're not going to go in detail, obviously, but we talked about in season 1, the spiral is the symbol of these people doing the worst possible things you can do to other people. And so then it becomes, then we see the spiral again. But there's something later on where, that guy who they go see in the remote, like hunter community, who has this, he has this stone that has the spiral on it. Well, then this guy comes along later when I think Eve is in the laundromat, and they're like, no, this is something that like hunters would put on stones as a symbol to warn other people that there are like ice caves nearby and you can fall into them. Wow. And so it's like, well, hold on, that doesn't make any sense. No. And then we find out that the whole spiral is some kind of, prehistoric creature that's trapped in the ice. And it's like, this is the problem, because it's totally, then the whole thing with the spiral, Tuttle, all of that, it was all a red herring, and it's all misdirection. And so then it's like, well, now you kind of, maybe cheapened is not the right word, but it's like there was meaning, and obviously, like, we know that different symbols mean different things. So if you go back to the ancient Roman times, a cross for them means something different than it does to Christians today, right? There's obviously symbols can mean different things in different contexts, but it's like, if you're obviously going to tie back in to season 1 with this, and then just make it, it's like, what is it? Is this a symbol just for hunters? Is it something? Because then it still seems that. Because there was like that, it was painted on the roof of that camper that Raymond was living in, and you see it elsewhere. And so then, I don't know, to me that was annoying, because it's like, well, now you've basically just thrown away everything about this. It's like, so what is this supposed to be some kind of cult where they're worshiping this prehistoric creature in the ice in Alaska? That's absurd.
Right.
I mean, granted, there's been like cults are absurd, but I don't know. To me, it felt kind of stupid, and I was a little bit irritated by how all of that, the way they dealt with all of that.
Yeah, no, it's probably something more. It's probably something meta sinister, which is that the revelatory nature of the symbol in the first season, and then later going into the same themes in the second and third season, which is about tunnels of Typhon, creepy, satanic stuff, but it's on its surface, right? We know that that's what it is in the show. That's what the show is about.
Yeah,
it's like, oh well, now we're gonna do a 4th season, and we're gonna throw all that out the window, and now so now it's like, if anybody watched the 4th season, they go, oh, you mean that silly thing? Oh no, it didn't mean anything because I watched season 4. and they've forgotten about seasons 1, 2, and 3. They don't even remember. And so it's like a limited hangout, right? It's like, we showed you this thing, but now we kept the worst, 10% of it, which is worse than the rest of it. And it's about a red herring in the show. It's just nothing. And you're right. It didn't make any sense. Like, if they're in the ice cave and they look up and they see that symbol, then it would make sense. If anything, it would be a symbol of the drill, right? The drilling down. But then why would it be above them?
Right.
Right. And also, it doesn't make sense to have it on the stone because, like, so you're going to paint the stones, but like in a primitive culture or in Celtic, like when you have stones and you carve on them, that's why runes are angular and straight lines, because everybody knows you can't carve into a stone or a tree like in a circle. It's very hard to do that. So you carve straight lines, right? You're etching into them. But this one, it's like, oh, so they paint on the stone. Well, how fast does the paint go off of the stone in Arctic ice water weather, right? And it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense like that the entire town is plagued by the memory of this primitive, prehistoric pantheon, mythological, Drino-stealing beast creature. And then the scientists are the ones that find this thing. It doesn't... If they're not going to tie those two together, right? Because those two are supposed to be separate. The scientists are like, oh, we don't take stock in any of that. But all of a sudden they're infected by the things that the village speaks. They don't even go into the village. So how would they even know about that? Right? They're all on their own. So when they say, oh, we've awoken this thing, it's like, well, then there has to be something in their language or in their story that ties together the fact that they've awoken some sort of prehistoric beast creature or an amoeba or a disease or something, right? But then they wouldn't have the same symbolism that the people that they're separated from have. Right. It doesn't make any sense. And then it's all over the town. So maybe the show, is there something we're missing? Is it they're really doing this stuff? I don't think there is because we don't see any. It's not young people. The only access we have in the show to seeing anybody young is when the characters who are alive were young. But the things that they went through, aside from the girl's sister and Eve, those aren't tied in with this in the resolution of the story. So the two things aren't tied together. It's really weak.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely weak. And I hadn't, that's a really good point about the kind of meta sinister angle is that, it seems to serve to undercut everything that the first 3 seasons are about. And it's kind of like, if you look back at season 3, where there's that revelation that, oh, this thing that you think is going on that ties in with this case that Marty and Rust were working on. Oh, well, that's just, those guys are kooks. That was just some crazy theory that they had. And so, but with that, we know, again, because these things are, we know how the world works, especially if you look at something like Eyes Wide Shut, right? Where they can plant media narratives, they can plant stories. These people who have this power, they write the stories, they create the narratives. And so we know that was, what happened in season 1 was legit. And that story that TV producer brought up was them trying to, write off anybody who gets too close to the truth. But now it's like, that's basically what they're doing, is they're saying that, no, all of that you thought you knew, no, that's all not true. And no, that's a great point about who's going to take the time to be like, yeah, let me carve this spiral into this little stone. Like, how would you, if you're out in, if it's, I don't know, like 1000 AD or whatever, and you're out there in the frozen Arctic land, where are you even going to get the implements to do that? Where are you going to get the rocks from? Like, where are you going to get these little stones? Like, it doesn't make sense. And
it was walrus blood from my finger. Side note, I don't know why it looks like I have a Santa Claus gut when I'm sitting here. I look like I've got a gut hanging over my whole body, but I don't have a gut. All right, I don't want to hear it, everybody. It's just because I'm being swallowed up here on my sofa where I look like I'm 3'11", right? I'm a scared mister.
It's a good look. I like it's a nice change of scenery. I like the I like the couch stream.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then they even well, then they find these bits, right? These long kind of drill bits that have the star-shaped pattern on the end. The head of the bit is in a star shape. And so then they pull these racks of these long ice cores out, and then they find, oh, there's a ladder that goes up, and it's, oh, what do you know?
She goes, wow, if I look around here, Dr. Lecter, I might find some evidence. What's this? Oh, it's a star-shaped drill bit, right? It's a star-shaped drill bit. It looks just like, come over here, Eve. Let me just see if does it make a star shape in you? And then they uncover, the ladder, which is like well lit, illuminated ladder up through the tunnel, right?
Yeah.
Which it also doesn't make sense as to why it's hidden inside the facility. Why wouldn't they have a room where they go into it and it's legit and they go down? And why is that? Because they're there. We know from the beginning that they're there to bore. We know they're there taking ice core samples. So why would they have it secret? Like with a secret entrance? That doesn't make sense, does it?
Yeah, and like they obviously, as we see in what's coming, they all knew it was there. It's not like only Raymond and one other guy knew it was down there. They all knew that was down there. So why make it harder to access? Because if you're going to pour millions of dollars into this place and just setting it up, then why would you not lay it out better and be like, oh, actually, maybe we shouldn't have the ladder where we're going to have to pull these racks out, and then they're just going to be in the way. I get you. Yeah, that it just seemed, I don't know. Yeah, it was one of those things.
Well, they also obviously knew about it because when we see so when we find out what happened to the girl in the shipping container, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so can I take us through this real quick? What happened to the girl?
To Annie. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So one of the things that's at the center of the show is that there was an indigenous girl, an Inuit girl, who was found in a shipping container. She'd been stabbed 32 or 33? Either way, it was
32.
322 times, right? And she's in this shipping container. So all the people in the town are mad because they think that the Inuit ladies are being targeted, and then that leads us to believe that's why they have the spiral, right? Because there's a killer on the loose who's targeting these particular women because it's a serial killer, right? Well, what we predicted in the last show was that it was probably going to be these same women in the village who were if there was a cult, it was going to be them, and they were somehow going to be tied to this. Now, we kind of got it right and kind of got it wrong. I mean, it wasn't a hidden Tuttle Carcosa cult that was doing this in a ritualistic manner with, strapping horns to people. Instead, they weren't the ones that killed the girl, right? I kind of figured they might have killed the girl because maybe she said something about what the cult was doing. That's why they cut out her tongue. And by the way, it still wasn't even tied up who cut the tongue out. They sort of alluded to that it was John Hawkes, but they never really tied it up because okay, so what we find out is that the girl was working at the lab, which also doesn't make sense because they said the lab is separate. The people from there don't come here. Well,
or she was, I don't know if she was actually working. I thought she snuck in. She snuck in behind, or was she doing the cleaning? Was she part of the cleaning crew?
No, I don't think she was part of the cleaners because the cleaners came by later and found it.
Right, because I think she snuck in that's right, because Raymond said she had seen some of his notes and started to get an idea because she figured out that I think we may have talked about this in the first installment of this, but that they were polluting. Yeah. So there was a special part of the Salal facility, the scientists there, who were putting out the numbers for the mine, and we found that they were faking the pollution numbers. That they were saying it was below a certain level and it was actually above a certain level. So then Annie had found some notes on that, and then she somehow snuck into the facility.
So it's definitely tied in with them then, because that was when we first saw that group, was when they were, or maybe that was the second time when they were helping the woman give a natural birth, and they were all surrounding her, and they all have the Inuit tattoos. And then we learned that there was another stillbirth. So there've been like 9 stillbirths, and it's obviously because the water is black and because of the mine. We know that that's going to be the case. But the woman, I guess, like you were saying, found the notes and that they were lying about the pollution numbers, and they were still doing so the mine is tied in with the science facility because the science facility is sponsored by the mine, and they are, as part of their research, studying pollution and putting out fake numbers, right? So we learned that. So the woman goes down and she starts destroying the research, which also doesn't make sense that she would do that. Maybe she's in the heat of passion and she doesn't like the scientists and she's destroying their shit. That's fine. Okay. But then the guy walks down there and one of the people grabs the drill bit and starts stabbing her with it. And then the other scientists come down and they're like, what are you doing? And he's like, she destroyed all of our research, 40 years of research. And they're like, get her. And then they start stabbing her. Right. So they're all involved in this murder now. And then the one guy who's like, no, don't do it. He's the guy that shows up in the tunnel. He's like this. He's that guy. So he goes, no, we've got to save her. She's like drowning in her blood. She's like trying to get away like this on his face. And he's like, just be quiet. Just be quiet. So he smothers her to death. And he's like, I'm here to help you. Right. Meanwhile, he smothers her. This is terrible. And then my problem is, first of all, 40 years of research or whatever, and it's still all there, and they haven't digitized it. They haven't put it anywhere. I mean, all the research would be useless now in the little racks and everything. Surely they published this or put it. They've got it at their data bank or wherever. It's like, who cares? She's getting rid of core samples, like. So what, right? And then they're all going to get mad and do this. I guess that's probably believable because they're the real cult. The scientific priests down there decide to sacrifice the woman, right, with the star-shaped drill bit. But then they just go back about their lives upstairs, and they're playing Ferris Bueller over and over on super loud, which is really weird. Like they're having a party, and then they invite Consuela and her crew over, and they're mopping the floor. They see the water goes down, and they open the thing up. They go downstairs. They see the same evidence that the cops found, which was the drill bit, and then they go, "Oh, these scientists did it, right?" So then they go back and they have their. Well, I was gonna say something. I don't know if I should say that, but they get together and beat the drums, and then come back. Right. And they all have rifles, and they awaken the scientists, get out of your beds. Right. And they kidnap them, take them outside, put them in a shipping container, take them out to the snow, order them to take their clothes off and to run into the distance. And then that's why the guys were found buried halfway. Was it because there was another blizzard? Why are they buried halfway in the snow? First of all, like up to here. Why did they take their clothes off? Why did they listen to the women? Why are they screaming in agony out in the snow like that? What, like as if they're looking at the demon beast, all looking at something, right? And they're just frozen like that. It doesn't. If the ladies came and they pointed the thing in your face like this and they said, "Get out of bed," like, wouldn't you just be like, "No," right? Right? You just be like, no, take it away, right? You're not going to do. Also, you took your clothes off in the snow, right? They took their clothes. They're not even. They didn't even fire a warning shot, like to let them know that they meant business or anything. Not that I remember. Why are they going to make them take their clothes off? And they're actually going to do that? What is wrong with you people?
Yeah, it was totally insane, right? And because the way they found this out is they finally Raymond locks Liz into, so he basically tricks her. There's this room where they kept the ice core sample, because they kept the ice core samples down in this ladder in the frozen area underground, but then they also had them in a freezer on the main floor of the Salal facility. So he opens the door, so Liz goes to check it out. Then he locks her in the freezer, and then he whacks even the head to the fire extinguisher, and knocks her out. So then Liz gets she breaks some handle off of a door and then like bashes her way through the glass with this thing, because like you'll basically freeze to death in there in a matter of minutes if you're locked in that freezer. And so then Eve comes to while she's being dragged down the hallway by Clark, and then the next thing we see, he's getting his ass beat by her on the floor. And so then Liz catches up with him. They duct tape him to a chair.
Yeah.
And then they take the video of Annie when she died, like put the headphones in his ears.
Oh yeah.
Tape it to his head, and then they leave. And they're like, "Oh, it's going to let you listen to this on repeat."
They do a you and Cameron psychic driving session.
Yeah.
On him which is, I mean, they really do torture him, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they tape it to his head, and they don't even know yet whether he was the one who did it or not. And then they leave, and they're like, oh, let's go find some Fritos.
Yeah, right? We're gonna eat Funyuns in the kitchen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then I guess we better go check on him.
Yeah, right? After a while, let's go see if this guy who we've just MK Ultra'd, if he's like how he's doing. And so they go back and find him, and he's all like bloody and pathetic and crying because he had been dating Annie. Like they had a thing that nobody knew, the secret relationship. And so that's when he tells him about what happened down in the where she had come in and smashed all the research and everything. And so we see he's it's sort of unreliable, and this is one of the things with the flashbacks. Basically every flashback in the show, you don't know what was real and what wasn't. It was very hard to tell. And so one of these is we see that he's telling them, no, I never touched her, I never did it, it was these other scientists. But then it's showing he's the one that smothered her after she'd been stabbed 32 times. Now this was unrealistic to me, that they would do this. So it's kind of, if any of y'all have seen the movie Wind River, it's a wonderful movie. There's one scene in particular that's pretty brutal. I'm not going to get into the specifics of it, but if you've seen the movie, you know the one I'm talking about. There's something very bad. So John Bernthal's character is in, he's like an oil worker, and he's in his in this bunkhouse with this girl, this native girl that he's been dating, and these his co-workers come in and they're all drunk or whatever, and so they decide that they're going to beat him up and commit this horrible act against this woman, and they all just kind of jump in. They're like, oh yeah, cool, like let's just get in on this. And it was like, you're telling me there's that many of those people who are willing, and it's like 3 or 4 of them that are all willing to like beat this guy up and then commit this horrible act against his girlfriend, like just because. And it was the same kind of thing that you're telling me all these guys are like, oh yeah, give me the drill bit. Let's all take turns. Take, like, it doesn't make sense. Like, who does this? Like you're not, and I get mob mentality and all that, but in these kind of situations, like that just doesn't happen. And so it seemed very, like that was very kind of unrealistic. And then we have where
maybe the show is secretly based, and it's showing that the priests of scientism are willing to maybe the drill bit was a metaphor for the stabby, and that they're willing to stabby anybody and the population, right? And then go and eat Fritos and watch Ferris Bueller, right? That they don't care about it. But I seriously doubt that was the message.
That's actually pretty good. That was good. I don't. Unfortunately, I don't know. Maybe you've stumbled across the true meaning,
right,
of the show. But
because also remember what was going on at the time, which was we had Karanka and we had cops.
Yeah.
So it's showing that the cops are no good and the priests of scientism are no good.
Right.
And they're pointing this at the maybe the Inuits in this are a symbol for the people whose blood remained unstabbied, right? And that they are killing everybody off with stillbirths and all this stuff, right? Maybe it's secretly based. I don't know.
Could be. I would.
If that there would have to be more to tie it up in the end.
Yeah.
But also those things are funded by corporations, right? All of the events were co-opted by the corporation. And in the end, I guess the message is the corporation shuts down and you go out into the wilderness and you watch from your porch and you look at the sunset and you're now in nature.
Yeah.
it's maybe the message is get away from the corporations and the scientism and go out into the sunlight. Maybe it is secretly based. I don't know.
Maybe so. I like that take. That's a good theory. I like that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was they're in this Salal facility, and one thing that didn't make sense, it was like, people, if you're gonna write a show, you have to get some continuity. Like, you have to remember what we did, 5 episodes ago, because in episode 1, when they come in and that Twist and Shout is playing from Ferris Bueller's Day Off at full volume, well, then Liz like rips the cords out, and so it'll shut off. But then when they go back to the facility, it's back on again, and it's playing over and over. And so it's like, unless Raymond's just crazy and he just wants to listen to the same thing over and over. But it was like, it seemed to imply that it was still going. And it's like, but we remember she shut that off in the first episode.
Yeah.
And so that didn't really make a whole lot of sense. But so then the last episode was an hour and 15 minutes long, which was about, I don't know, 45 minutes too long.
Yeah.
And because all this happens like in the first 20, 30 minutes of the show. And then the rest of it is, so then Liz goes to try to get some sleep.
Oh, wait, we have to tie up. Am I jumping ahead here? We have to tie up how Zippy disposes of John Hawkes' body.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna get to that.
Okay.
Yeah, so they get trapped. They're at the they're at the Slaw facility. Liz tries to go get some sleep. She wakes up, and then come to find out, she can't find Eve, and she can't find Raymond either. Well, then we find out Raymond. So I think he told Eve like he wanted her to off him, basically.
Yeah.
And so, or he wanted to off himself. And so then Liz goes and finds he's out in the snow, in his like tank top and shorts.
Yeah.
Basically, he's buried like up to his chest, basically going out the same way that his coworkers did, and Eve's just kind of standing there watching. And she's like, "Well, what are you doing?" And so then she doesn't ever explain. We find out later what happened there, but she doesn't explain in the moment. Well, then the power goes out. So then they're stuck out there, and we learn it's not even, well, later we learn it's not even midnight yet. So they've been out there for hours or whatever, and but again, you can't really tell what time it is because it's night all the time. So I guess it seems like it had been a lot longer than it actually had. So anyway, at one point, so then like the power goes out and they can't get the generator started, so they're freezing on there. And so then I think this is when it cuts to, so do you want to talk about what happened with Freshman and his and the John Hawkes character?
Yeah. So Zippy's like, "Oh, what am I gonna do?" So he goes into full Pat Bateman mode, right? He strips down to his white boxers. I got an 8:30 res at Dorsia, right? 10:30 matinee of Les Mis. Okay, the Les Mis posters in the background. He's like cleaning up all the blood from the house, and then the sister, Dr. Lecter's daughter shows up to the house. Bam! She just walks in. He sees some gum on the wall. What was the gum from?
It was a bullet that had lodged in the wall.
Oh, it looked like a piece of gum. The way he was like, it was very weird. So he's like, "Oh, nothing," real quick, right? Like takes the bullet out, and he's like, "Okay, I'll give you a ride." So he's already loaded the body or the bodies into the back of the Suburban. Then he gives the Dr. Lecter's daughter a ride. Then he's like, "I'm just gonna drop you off at my wife, soon to be ex-wife's house. I gotta go like do some things and some stuff." And she's like, "The fuck do you have to do?" And he's like, just cop stuff, crooked cop stuff. And then his wife comes out and jumps in the car, and she's like, "Where are you going? What's wrong with you?" And he's basically like, I'm not going to dispose of my dad's body. She grabs him and kisses him, and now she makes up with him, right? She likes that he's doing crooked cop stuff. She's also the only attractive woman in the whole show. She's like, I think she's I really liked his wife. I thought she was super hot. And she was just like, are you with me on that?
No,
Like,
yeah, she was like she was very attractive and a good actress too. I don't know who the actress was. I don't know her name, but like she played the role very well. And I think that yes, definitely best look. We respect women over here, and she was certainly the best looking women best looking woman on the show for sure.
I certainly respect the best looking woman on the show. She was pretty hot. And she's got a genuine beef with the guy. It's not that he's away from the house all the time, like doing his work. It's that he's simping for Dr. Lecter all the time, right? And that he can't just be a man and be like, look, I got work. You know, I know that when I got into this, I wasn't doing this, but like I got work and I'm going to be here at certain times. And, you know, we're in a partnership together. Instead, he's like, oh, you know. Anyway, then she grabs him like she's the husband, though, and kisses him, it was a very weird. It was kind of weird staging, but then it shows that they're going to make up, right? And then he's like, all right, well, as soon as I go bury this body, I'll be back. So he leaves, and who does he go to for help with burying the body? Of course, Boomer Shaman, right? So he goes out and finds Boomer Shaman, and he's like, I need some help. And she's like, is it burying the body of your dad? And he's like, yes. And she's like, can you get me tickets to Woodstock 3 or 4? And he's like, yes. And she's like, right on, man, groovy. So then they go out. They go to the same place where his dad saved him, right? And where Eve had buried her sister's ashes in a hole in the snow, because I guess the Bering Sea or something goes right up under the ice. And so she's going to wash away, right? So then she does that, and then he almost loses it and goes in the water, and she saves him. She's like, didn't I tell you to stay away from Country Joe and the fish? Right, or whatever.
Because he's having a flashback. So he's like the one making the hole in the ice with the pick, and because it flashes back to when he fell onto the ice, and John Hawkes is hammering away at the ice trying to get his son out.
Yeah,
and she has to stop him because she's like, you idiot! Like you're going to crack all the ice, and then we're both going to fall in and die.
Yeah, she's like, listen, I know you see yourself in slow motion, like you're trying to do 2001 Space Odyssey, the ape with the bone scene, but you're making a fool of yourself. Just chip away at a little bit, right? And then just dump him in there, and then it'll be fine, right? Because, out here, man, we're all one. And then they sit there and they like meditate on, the way the sea is the same as them and they're all one. And then that's the end. That's the end of them, right? I guess the guy goes back and he's going to get back with his wife. So all's well that ends well with him.
Because we see that because she's like, okay, well now we gotta, because his dad is all like wrapped up in plastic bags with duct tape and everything, and she's like, okay, well now like we got to put him in, and he's like, I want to do it, and she's like, what, do you want to cut his lungs so like cut him so like the air out of his lungs so he won't float? And he's like, oh, never mind. And so then she's over there like stabbing the corpse.
Wait. So here's how it goes. So he goes, I brought my prop. So he goes, I want to watch, right? And she's like, you want to watch me deflate your dad and cut him up real bad so he doesn't float in the Bering Sea where nobody's going to find him anyway? And he's like, I guess not. He turns around. Then we see her in the background, shishing, like, and we hear this pop, 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 crunch, crunch, right? She's back there, right? And then, okay, I took care of it. Now you have to take your clothes off, right? It's very weird, man. It's very weird. So, that's. It's like, why are you enjoying this so much?
Yeah, I guess I don't know. Maybe Travis was like, all right, I'm going to teach you something, like Yale professor woman. This is how you properly dispose of a body that you're going to be putting in the Bering Sea. Is you have to cut the chest open and get into the lungs so that the body won't well, it's like, what is it? Like, who's going to be out there anyway? What are people just strolling around on the frozen parts of the Bering Sea? It's like -30 out here. No time for a nice evening stroll. Oh, look, there's a body wrapped in plastic.
Idea for a crossover. Idea for a crossover. Tonight on season 322 of Deadliest Catch, the Lisa Marie has just gotten a new load of Ophelia crab, right? And then they haul him up, and it's John Hawkes, like wrapped in plastic, and they're like, "Oh, we're out. This reminds us of what happened in that place a long time ago, right?" That's the only way they're gonna find him. That was so stupid. I'm sorry,
dude. I would watch that. That would be like a record-breaking viewership on Deadliest Catch.
Yeah. Ophelia crab.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what happens with that, and then so speaking of the ice, we see that. So Liz and Eve.
Hold on. Lewis in the chat. Lewis Carruthers doesn't have a business card, right?
No, he gets one later because when they're at that bar with that private club that they hang out at, he shows up and he's like, "Oh, I just got my new business card from the printers," and they're just like, "Oh, that's nice." And then
your compliment was sufficient, Lewis.
Right. McDermott was like, "Oh, very nice, Lewis." Yeah. And then that's when Bateman tries to go strangle him in the bathroom. But yeah, he didn't have one in the actual famous business card scene, but later he like presents it in his hand all like lame.
Patrick, what is that overnight bag? Let me guess. Jean-Paul Gaultier. It's Valentino Couture. Yeah, no, Lewis, it's not me.
Dude, I want to say that one of these days I'm going to run into somebody in town that I don't want to talk to, and they're going to be like, "Oh, it's you." I'd be like, "No, it's not."
Yeah. I've got did you see a bunch of people sent me this today? They're trying to remake American Psycho, a modern version of American Psycho. Yeah, all the comments were like, "Please don't make it Disney fake and gray." Right? Please, like, don't do this. No. Every single comment I saw was negative. What the fuck? I mean, remember they made a play out of it. Mm-hmm. Starring the guy who is in The Crown, and I forget. He actually is kind of like, and he played Doctor Who and all that. He actually is probably not a bad casting choice, but they made a musical version of it. Now I don't care if they make a musical for the West End in London, like, because that's a different crowd. Who gives a shit, right? That can only help the film and the book. But a modern version. What do you mean a modern version? The version. I mean, look, I already did an analysis where the book is different from the movie, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, they're different. But there's also an American Psycho 2. Have you seen American Psycho 2?
The one with Mila Kunis. No, yeah. I've not. I've read the plot synopsis, but I've not. I don't hate myself enough to. I don't hate myself, so I haven't subjected myself to watching that trash. Yeah.
That and Freeway 2. You got a smart little mouth, don't you? You got a smart little mouth. It's so bad, but it has nothing. Brady Snell said it has nothing to do with. I think they paid him something for the rights, but it has nothing to do with it. But whatever.
I know Mila Kunis even said that it was called something else initially, and then once she didn't find out till the movie came out that it was called American Psycho 2.
I mean, honestly, she probably wouldn't have even known anyway. They wouldn't have read it. But don't do that. Just it's Lionsgate Cinema. Charles Carroll had a bit about Lionsgate recently. They were talking about how they were talking about how like actors are materialized out of labs and test tubes at age like 35, and how he was like, that's not Jim Carrey. That's a different Jim Carrey. And he said, what is this, Lionsgate Cinema? Because he said that part of the ritual is they have to go out to the Lion's Gate. And he goes, the ritual goes like this. If you want to reach the Lion's Gate, you have to drive as fast as you can and keep on going faster. And maybe you'll make it. Right? But Lionsgate, I mean, just come up with some new ideas. Yeah, year zero.
Well, they already
let me give a shout out real quick to Crystalline out there, because I think that might have been the same stream where I was looking on like either Dollar Stream or somewhere, and I looked at the comments, and the top comment, I was reading it, and I was going, damn, it's a based comment. And who was the comment from? Slow Boy Whiteboard. Shouts out to Kristen out there. Top comment on Dollar Stream. Either it was Dollar Stream or Perfect Guy Life. I forget which one, but I saw that comment and I was like, damn, I'm so proud to be a part of this community.
Oh, it's so sweet. Shout out to Kristen. I was going to say they actually kind of did make a modern American Psycho. I didn't see it, but Steve Mnuchin, who I think was Treasury Secretary under Trump, his wife which is like his fourth or fifth wife or something, Louise Linton. I had to look up the name of the movie. It's called Me, You, Madness. And I haven't seen this. I listened to a podcast episode about it. This is basically like an American Psycho, but just for women. It's like this woman who, it's basically if you just took American Psycho and then made it about a woman it came out, 2021 in the 2020s, then that would be, and it's just like a terrible ripoff of it, apparently.
I'm a busy businesswoman.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it says here she's a corporate hedge fund manager and serial killer, has a high fashion sense, spends her money on expensive cars, clothes, artwork, sports memorabilia, and furniture. So it's like, well, there you go. That's basically, I mean, Bateman, he wouldn't be spending his money on sports memorabilia, but
Check this out. Bone, Cillian Braille. See this?
Nice.
Look, that's the card. It's mirrored, but that's David Van Patten's card. Pearson Pierce, phone number, right? Exchange Place, New York. Check it out.
Actually, I have his phone number now. So if y'all call that number, it'll be me at the investment bank answering your call. So if you have any important, actually, if you do not have any, definitely don't call me with any important tips you might have about investments.
Yeah, no, this one is I one of my girlfriends from way back when the movie first came out, and I saw it, and we used to watch it together, and she got me this for Christmas. It's Eggshell with Romalian Type, right?
Nice.
It's the exact card. It's pretty nice.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah, I wish it had my name on it now instead of David Van Patten's name. That'd be pretty cool. To have
I know.
Card like that. Anyway,
I gotta go get business cards made one of these days. But yeah, I mean that's so to get to the end of episode 6 is, so there's this lengthy part where Eve disappears, right? And so we know, it's implied, like, I guess her mother just went out on the ice and disappeared. Her sister did the same thing. Yeah. And so then she goes out and just goes walking. And so then, and it's like a whiteout blizzard. You can't see anything. It's pitch black. There's no lights anywhere. And so Liz goes and follows her because they get in an argument so there's some flashbacks where we see Liz like playing on the floor with this kid. Yeah. I initially thought was her stepdaughter. But I was like, that kid looks like a boy. Like, that does not look like a girl. And then we find out she actually did have a son with her stepdaughter's dad. So I guess this guy had a daughter. He then met Liz. They got married, had a son, and then the son and the dad were killed in a crash with a drunk driver. And so then she just kept taking care of the stepdaughter, whose name it escapes me at the moment, but and so then they have this argument because then Eve is like, oh yeah, like I saw Holden, and she Liz has this whole freak out with like the stupidest threats where she's like, I'll shoot your mouth right off your stupid face.
Yeah.
Like, oh wow, okay.
You shut your mouth. You shut your smart mouth. How dare you say his name? You got a smart little mouth. Right?
It's so bad.
Shoot your stupid mouth. Your stupid mouth. Yeah, it's like, look, first of all, you got the fire going, but you're in the coldest part of the building, right? Why not go into the hot part of the building where there's some heat, or at least build the fire inside, right?
Right.
The doors can't even close all the way, so you got ventilation. You're going to go into the cold factory place. Second of all, we knew that she had a son, but I guess the son reference because of the polar bear, right? And I knew that she was going to have some trauma that she was hiding because of the polar bear, and the polar bear was her son's toy. Is this a Holden Caulfield reference? Is this a Catcher in the Rye reference?
Could be.
I guess. I mean, naming the son Holden, I can't. If you're going to name the son Holden, like Holden, hold on. She's holding on to him.
Mm-hmm.
She's holding him in her mind or heart. She's broken. She does that to herself though, where she's a complete atheist, and she does that to herself, right?
Yeah.
And she's so locked up and angry. Of course, that's why she has the surrogate son in Zippy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I suppose that I don't know if Zippy would be the same age as her son Holden now,
Probably a little
But,
bit older, I'd imagine.
Probably, but that's obviously why she has this, as John Hawk says, weird like Mrs. Robinson relationship with him or something, some sort of Oedipal thing. But it's still, it's like we get it. Everybody in this town has lost. That's the thing in the town, that everybody has lost somebody.
Yeah.
Right. But that also is a microcosm for everybody that mirrors the real world. People, we live, that's a fact of life. But I guess it's from the lack of personal connections, even though there seems to be more. I mean, there's a community in the town, which is the Native people. Obviously, they're a strong community. They have time together. But there's this brokenness, and the fact that they live in night all the time, which doesn't allow them to have hope. That you're surrounded by darkness. But like, you have to have. There's not a church in the town. Right. They never mention that. There's no church in the town. There's just I guess the factory is their church in the town. Right. So it's going to be like this, which is different from season 1, especially. Right. Season 1 had the revival tents. At least this one's got just darkness and polar bears and paganism. Yeah. So
I was just thinking about, wasn't Holden, wasn't that the name of the judge in Blood Meridian?
Yeah, Judge Holden. That's right. Yeah. That's a good tie-in.
I don't know if there's any connection there. I mean, it's when you think about kind of prominent names in literature, you said Holden Caulfield, Judge Holden.
That's great.
I don't know. It always makes me wonder where they pull those kind of things from.
Well, season 1 certainly has Blood Meridian type activities. And we mentioned in the last stream that maybe there was a Blood Meridian type of thing going on, because remember I said this, instead of having the Glanton gang eliminating natives, it was going to be the opposite thing, which was natives eliminating the people that come in from the outside, right? Which is what happened. It didn't have a mystical term, but actually that's probably more faithful to what they were doing in Blood Meridian in a sense. Because they're eliminating them. The people are being eliminated, even though the factory stands. So it's the greater conglomerate structure of America, or the government, or factories, or corporation stands. Judge Holden is hired by mayors and big groups to do what he does. But there's no Judge Holden character in this. So I guess maybe it's like Blood Meridian, and also remember at the end of Blood Meridian, the epilogue is Judge Holden walking through the landscape, dancing and digging holes into the earth with fire. So they're digging holes into the ground. They're boring into the ice. They're in a wasteland. Instead of sand, it's snow. So there's some correlation there. But the elimination of Holden as a character is interesting. So.
And that's one of the things we see, like with the mine, is we find out that they actually were
Blood Meridian. I'm sorry, Blood Meridian was the book that they found in the first episode.
Yes, that's right. Yes, yeah.
I was reading Blood Meridian, so I think probably you can imagine that the writers were like, "I just read Blood Meridian. Let's have that in the show. We've got digging into the ground. We've got elimination of natives or something going on." And then we need one more tie-in. Let's name the kid Holden. And they're like, sounds good. I guess that's it.
Yeah, one of the things, with sort of the elimination of the native people is that is kind of what's happening, because we find out when Raymond tells them, no, it's not that we were, faking their pollution numbers of the mine. We actually wanted them to accelerate it, because what they were trying to extract, this amoeba or whatever it was, this prehistoric, DNA or something in the ice. He said that they couldn't get to the permafrost because I don't know if it wouldn't survive the extraction process. They couldn't get it because it was deep in the permafrost. So they actually told the mine to ramp up the pollution so that it would melt the permafrost and they could get to it more easily. Well, what happens is, so just to run through, just to get to what I'm talking about, just to run through the last bit of it. So I'll come back around to it. So Eve disappears. She goes out into the snow, and then Liz follows her. And it's like, okay, if you're going to do this, you better if you're going to come back, you got to turn around and go exactly back where you're walking, because otherwise you've got about 10 minutes until you're dead.
Yeah.
And so then Liz goes and she sees in the ice, there's somebody under there, like beating on the ice, trying to get out. And so then she falls through the ice, and we see her kind of, in this black water and trying to, get out. And we think she's dead. Well, then Eve comes and pulls her out. Somehow they find their way back into the facility, and then they kind of have this moment where they sort of reconcile. And she's like got her in the fire, got their clothes changed, she's trying to get her warmed up. And then so then they go and they are trying to, because then Raymond had told them that when all this happened, when the native woman came for them, that he went down into this hatch, which is hidden under a tile on the floor. And so then they find out that, then he said he just held onto the hatch for an hour because another guy was trying to get in there to hide from them. And so Raymond was the only one that did, though. He survived. So then they're like, okay, well, let's figure this out. So they go back to the hatch. Liz finds some kind of chemical, pours it on there. They get a black light, and they find there's a handprint that's missing these two fingers. And so then they realize, oh, we know somebody who has a hand that's missing those two fingers. Turns out it was the woman from the beginning who worked at the crab processing facility, who had been, we see her in the first episode when Eve shows up after her, boyfriend had showed up and assaulted her at work. And so then they go to this woman's house, and then we see all these native women coming out, and there's some, the white women there as well. And then we find out they kind of tell this story. She explicitly says, the kind of ringleader of this says, oh, this is a story we tell. Yeah. And so it's then she kind of, like you were saying with them, they went out with the guns because they figured it out, because they found out that one of them spilled the mop water, and then it goes down into the floor. She opens up she opens up the floor, realizes, oh, here's this hatch that's down there. So they figured it all out. So anyway, I was going somewhere with the.
We forgot our mop and glow.
I said I was going to come back around to something, and now I forgot what I was coming back around to. What was I talking about before I got, oh gosh. With the natives is we find that there'd actually been an acceleration of cancer. There'd been more people who were stillbirth. And so it was poisoning the water of, the people, mostly native population that live in the town. So there is kind of a sort of systematic, because they're ramping up the pollution at the mine to get the permafrost to melt so they can get this, whatever, this miracle amoeba or whatever it is, it's going to cure, all these diseases. It's like, oh, well, we're just going to, pollute and kill all these people. And so then later we find, so then after all this, Eve disappears because Liz goes to her house, goes into, the door's unlocked. She goes in and sees that Eve is gone. And on her bed is a phone. Now, what was interesting is there's actually a cross on Eve's wall next to the bed.
Yeah.
And actually, speaking of crosses, I'm going to come back to something in a second. But, and so then she finds this video, and it's Raymond explaining, oh, yeah, we did all this. We were poisoned. We were intentionally, basically intentionally giving these people, cancer and stillbirths and all these problems. And so anyway, he, and so, yeah, that's how we, so yeah, it was sort of an admission. And then we found, okay, so that's why Eve was fine with, putting him out in the snow and letting him die, because she got what she needed out of him.
Yeah.
So there's one we get. I don't know. Do you have anything you want to throw in on that before we?
Well, I guess in terms of symbolic elements, I mean, so cracking the surface of the ice and plunging into the abyss, which is what happened. Right? There's your word, people. There's your abyss. She plunges into the darkness of the abyss, and then there's a hand that comes down and saves her, bringing her back into the other world. There's the tunnels and caves of ice, which is almost like a primordial. I don't know. It's like whenever I hear caves of ice, I always think of the Kublai Khan. Weave a circle around him thrice, right? Caves of ice. and weave a circle around him thrice, like there's a spiral, right? And that's with in Kublai Khan, the images of like eyes like fire, and also when they're going through the tunnels in the ice, you expect them that they walked out into the wilderness, they walk out into nothingness, they plunge beneath the surface, they walk through, caves, ice caves, and then they find the center of the maze, the cave maze. That they're supposed to be at the center of the labyrinth, but at the center of the labyrinth, they're supposed to find the Minotaur, right? And the Minotaur in this is, I guess, themselves, because in this, there's no beast Minotaur like there is in season 1, right? With what's his name? Not Tuttle.
Errol Childress.
Childress, right? Who has the first part of his name is supposed to mimic, supposed to be a dark symbolism of what he's taking, right? In this one, the beast is like themselves, and then when they find out that it's this cult of women, notice that it's a story they tell, so they literally are saying, we don't admit to this. There's no way you can tie us to this in terms of physical guilt, or evidence, but also that the moral is supposed to be that they did the right thing, right? And that the other women are in league with them, and they forget because they also are compromised, because they also did something like that. Because Dr. Lecter and Eve did essentially the same thing in their own lives. So now it's all tied in. But at the end, the resolution is that the factory this exposes the factory, and the factory shuts down. So now everybody's back to nature and back to the beginning. But what happened to all the people that worked at the damn factory? Because 50% of the population there is supported by the factory. The Children's Foundation or whatever, or the Tuttle Foundation, is going to go on. They got all their other shit going on. I mean, they were in seasons 1 through 3, so it's like whatever. But meanwhile, everybody in Ennis is unemployed, right? Now, granted, they were employed doing all this wacky, wild shit. But like, what about the people who aren't in the show, who are living there, who are just regular people and not involved in any of this shit and have to have jobs, right? Is there a way to keep the factory open without all the bad shit that was happening, right? So in the end, this is an expose of the climate thing having to do with factories, which is actually, maybe that's secretly based, because it shows that it's not the people that are doing the polluting, it's the corporation, right? It's the corporation that's causing all the problems. It's not the people, not the recycling or whatever the fuck. It's the corporation. So maybe maybe that's something positive to take from it. I don't know. But what's not positive is the fact that it's not wrapped up. And that we're on too many red herrings, and there's too much exposition, and there's too many threads that aren't closed, and the threads that are closed are like limited hangouts for the other things.
Right.
So this is kind of typical. Like this is typical of a show. And I don't want to say that it's like, oh, the writers and the studio like ruining the whole thing. It probably is those things, but it's also more than that. It's that it shows how if you have something that is on the verge of something revelatory and is a cohesive work of art, and you ruin it with one thread, the whole thing falls apart, and we can't trust the integrity of it anymore, and it becomes shit. And then that poisons the well for the other things that came before it.
Yes.
Poisons the well. Their well's poisoned there. So again.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I think that, it is sort of like, even though, I mean, the Tuttle Corporation, they've got their hands in all kinds of things, but it does show that, you can kind of, stick it to the corporation, because it's like they got this place shut down, because there's a scene where this guy's hiking, the ice, the ice is, or the snow is melted, and it's like summertime, I guess. And this guy's out hiking, and then it pans over, and there's a big chain link fence, and it shows that the mine has been shut down. Yeah. And so it's kind of like, oh, well, yeah, we got this place shut down. But you're right. It's like, okay, well, what happened to all these other people, right? And there's another callback to season 1 where Liz is being interviewed by these two two guys who, in suits, or they have their recording equipment out. So kind of like, we see with Marty and Rust being interviewed in season 1, but then we see that, the Zoomer cop freshman, he had reconciled with his wife. He was back with his wife and his son, but he's still Liz's servant because she's in there, getting interviewed. And then he comes in and is like, "Oh, here's your call," like brings her coffee. And it's like, well, she can get her own coffee. You know what I mean? Right. And so he's still, to me, that was kind of like, yeah, he's still on her leash.
It was like when Bob and Bob come to interview Michael Bolton in Office Space, right? John,
yeah.
That guy. It was like the same thing. It was just because we learned in True Detective 1 that the two guys who come to interview him, who come to interview both of those, Woody Harrelson and Russ Cole, they serve a purpose because they're not just there as framing for the story. We learned that plays an integral role in the story. They're actually investigating the thing in the present day.
Yes.
We just don't know that in episode 1 when they arrive. In this one, there's no point.
Yeah.
They're just trying to find a way to wrap up the story, but there's no point.
Yeah, because they were just trying to find out. I guess it was supposed to be like internal affairs people, and they were just trying to figure out, okay, well, what happened? What happened to Hank? What happened? Who leaked this video of Raymond admitting everything that they were doing with the mine?
Yeah.
And then it's kind of interspersed with these scenes
who leaked it. It's like, well, it came from an account called I'm Dr. Lecter. Did you see that movie at twitter.com? Right, who is that? Can you tell us who that is? The IP address is weirdly on your phone, right?
Yeah, it's saying like your address right here in Ennis, Alaska. We have Liz Danvers. It says it came from your home computer.
Yeah, it says it came from your Amiga computer at 1 Ennis Drive, and there's only one street in the whole town. And actually, there's only one computer here, and it's yours.
Yeah, it's just yours. That's the only one.
Do you know that
in this neighborhood.
She's like, listen, did you ever see Contact? Because that happened to me in Contact, Dr. Lecter. I mean, I was on a spaceship and it blew up, but then Jake Cockadoodie Busey blew it up. He was a domestic tourist, but then this other guy, he was a reclusive scientist. He had another spinning thing, spaceship on the other side of the state. Matthew McConaughey was even there with me, and he's in season 1 of this. So that's what happened, Dr. Lecter. And they're like, that sounds good. We're internal affairs, but we're only interested in affairs, if you know what I'm saying. And she's like, listen, Dr. Lecter, I know I was with Ted Eccleston in this, but that's never going to happen again. All right.
Yeah, Ted Eccles, Damien Eccles' father. If you didn't know that, he's
right. That's right. Yes. Who, by the way, was the subject of season 3 or season. Yes. Did you see that one, Dr. Lecter?
Did you see the guy standing in his bathrobe for 20 minutes staring at the camera? But so we see that Liz is, she's a new woman. She kind of, reforms her relationship with her stepdaughter. And we see her stepdaughter has like the chin tattoo. And so she let her get it. And then they're driving out to this remote cabin. Well, then we see Eve come walking up on the porch. And it's like, okay, is this real? Is she actually there? Is it not?
Whose porch is this?
Right. It's just some cabin out in the middle of nowhere. We don't know.
Yeah.
It's like, well, do you own this cabin? Is somebody Airbnb-ing a cabin that's like way out that it's like 50 miles from anybody else? We don't know. Okay. So that's how it ends. But folks, there's one thing. If you're still with us, you'll appreciate this. I'm going to let BLA take this because this was the stupidest, most cringe possible way they could have called back to season 1. I know what I'm talking about. This was painful. I wanted to just like throw the TV out the window. I was mad.
Should I reenact it?
But yes.
Okay. Here's how it goes.
This is actually, let me set this in. This is when they're interrogating Raymond, right? The guy who they have him duct taped to the chair. They're trying to get information out of it. So we're backtracking just a little bit.
Okay. All right. Tell me action.
All right. Action.
Ah, don't make me listen to her voice anymore. Oh, she's awoken. She's awake. Time is a flat circle. Ah.
Yes, the guy actually says time is a flat circle. He actually uses that line. Time is a flat circle. And I was like, you have got to be kidding me. There is whoever in the writer's room was like, you know what's a really good idea? We should pull that line. We should have this guy say, time is a flat circle, whatever. That's a great idea.
Here's an outtake from their first take of what this was originally supposed to be. He went like this. You and Cameron, psychic driving, Kerry Joji Fukunawa. He directed season 1, and then he directed the newest James Bond movie, Kerry Joji Fukunawa. Like, just random shit.
Yeah.
You're gonna just random shit, dude.
Oh my gosh!
What the fuck are you doing? Who decided that was a good idea to do this? Like that in season 1, when Matthew McConaughey says that, it is perfectly in line with all of the other weird shit that his character says, because he exists as this weird avatar of the spirit world in real life because he's broken like them, and he's going to be the guy that solves the case. And Woody Harrelson even is there to comment on it every time he does it. When he says, I don't sleep, I just dream. Woody Harrelson says, man, listen, people around here are normal people. They don't want to hear shit like that. Don't say shit like that when you come to my house. And that's for the audience. That's for the audience to go, look, this guy's super weird, but at least it lets us know that the other people know how weird he is. But that plays a role in the show because we go from weirdness and real world to a weird psychic world where actually the psychic world that happens is sinister and takes over the real world because we have these creeper Satan people. And Matthew McConaughey has to make his way into that. That's why he goes undercover at all these scenes to get to that place so that he can save the child or save the story for us. But in this one, we don't have any of those elements.
Right.
Yeah, we plunge beneath the surface, right, into the ice like a number of times. That's probably what they thought that was. They probably thought that was the deep part. They're like, oh, we're gonna have the lab underground, and it's like, yeah, but we literally know it's underground. If you're gonna have it underground and you're gonna keep mentioning, oh, she's awake,
yeah,
then you're getting. First of all, their obsession is with the PRONOUNS. So how are they gonna get the wrong one? That's their thing. So how are they gonna get the wrong one?
Right.
Oh, you're dead naming the mythical beast.
Right.
I mean, it just doesn't, and that's their attempt to have the key line from season 1 go back into this and have that be the advertising tagline that lets us into it. And it doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't matter how the actor was supposed to say it. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I don't know. That's all I got.
I was a few things on that. Yeah, you bring up some great points. I mean, the problem with, so like in season 1, it shows sort of a progression of Rust because, he's out there. He's got Reggie out there. They've raided these freaks compound out in the bayou, and Reggie's just kind of like, oh, you'll do this again. Time is a flat circle. He's like, oh, what's that, Nietzsche? Like, shut up. Yeah. And then, but we see later, as he's sitting there playing with the little men he made out of the beer cans, he's like, somebody told me once time is a flat circle. And so we see he's kind of integrated this idea into his own belief, and he's a visibly different character. Like, and honestly, Rust is he's sort of a shaman in the sense that any of the sort of like supernatural kind of things that we see, like of him seeing the birds making the spiral in the sky, him seeing the spiral in the sky when they're in Carcosa. So he's sort of, and it's sort of unclear. It's like, okay, is this guy just fried from, too much like speed and acid? But it's like, no, that he seems to be like some kind of shaman. And it's like, okay, but to go back to to season 4, if they were actually, if they should have never used that line,
Yeah.
You know, time is a flat circle. If they were going to, then it's like this should just be another installment of what was happening in the first 3 seasons, because we know what those are about, and this is not about that. So it's kind of like, if it was about that, I could almost forgive them for using that line, because it's like, yeah, you'll do this again. It's just the same thing over and over, right? It's detectives thinking it's one thing, and then they find out, no, it's actually something a lot bigger and a lot darker. Now, to get to the kind of, the blue creature is, so Raymond says that he kept seeing Annie. It was like, oh, he's hallucinating, but it sort of leads you to believe that he's he's actually seeing her, so it's like, or is she some kind of spirit? Is this some kind of apparition? Is he going crazy? What's going on? And so my take on it was that Annie was actually sort of supposed to be this kind of like vengeful, blue-haired creature. So the woman was basically getting revenge, and then these women who, went out with the guns and got the scientists, ran them out of the ice, that they were sort of acting, and this is some speculation, I guess, but they were sort of acting as like her hands, if you will, is that. So Annie's kind of becomes this vengeful, what it was, I can't remember the name of this like folk deity or whatever, but they were sort of extracting revenge, and it's sort of as she was the one who was taking revenge on them, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, the only way they tied that up was when she's cutting. I knew the spiral was going to be the orange, because we saw that in our first analysis that orange is the color for the indigenous Inuit cultural societal movement, right? That's their color in their political stuff. And we also have like the contrast between the tropical citrus and the orange and the whiteness of the snow. So it ends up being some sort of like psychopompic gesture when the orange floats out to her on the ice. She throws the orange out, and it floats back to her. It rolls back to her feet in that one scene out of the darkness. So we assume that that's not just something she's seeing, even though she's sort of verging on the two worlds. Like, it's sort of an inherited schizophrenia with her because of what she's we learned that's obviously what she's gone through with her sister and all this stuff. But when they get to the facility and they see the oranges, and she says something about like, oh, my uncle used to cut oranges or whatever that was. I knew that was going to be the spiral, because like cutting, it's like I maybe it was the first stream I talked about this, about like the actors thing of cutting the onion or cutting an apple on stage and having it form a spiral line, which is something for actors to do on stage, where you're telling a story and then you get to the core, and by that, the core of the story, and by that point you've cut the whole the rind, right? Well, in this, it was Dr. Lecter sitting there, and she looks down at her plate, and there's the spiral in front of her. She goes, whoa, man. But that doesn't tie in. It's like, I guess what they're trying to say there is, you're cutting the surface of the fruit, right? And you're getting the skin off of it. Now you need to get to the center, and the core of the fruit is going to be the ice core underneath. And the ice core is where the amoeba was, which is the whole reason for them doing all this stuff, which is to find the cure for cancer. But also, if they found the cure for cancer and they've been doing it for 40 years and they found the cure and they sped it up, then why they never did anything with it? Of course, because it's the evil corporation. So I guess they'll do something else with it. Right. But it still doesn't make sense.
Well, one thing there's an interesting take on the kind of getting to the core. I hadn't considered that, because my take on the when she was peeling the orange, because Eve had told her like, oh yeah, my mother used to peel these, and she could like get the whole peel off in one go, and so the whole entire peel would make this spiral. And so when Liz is over there, trying to peel this thing, and then she stops, she can't get it all the way, like she messes up. And so I took that as sort of that there's some kind that she's sort of cut off from these, because she's like a hardcore materialist, atheist, angry, hates God, all of that kind of thing. And so it's which I'm sorry to cut in.
That's also different from Matthew McConaughey in the first one, right? Because he's not a materialist atheist. He's like he's some sort of weird version of a uber metaphysical Nietzschean Zoroastrian like psychopomp or something. He has a different realm than us. He has insight for one, and she doesn't have insight. So her thought, you brought this up when we were talking, like the whole thing about asking questions, which was a terrible trope for this. It really was.
Awful.
That's a terrible. You're not. I mean, because it was so put on. It was like you're not asking the right questions. Well, why don't you fucking ask the questions then, bitch? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, why aren't you? If you want me to ask, I mean, like, I understand she wants somebody to bounce the ideas off of her and give her things from the outside that she hadn't thought of, but it doesn't work like that in the show. That doesn't work. And when the two characters in the first season, I mean, I know we're comparing it to the first season, but we have to because it has the same title. It's in the same universe. It's supposed to be. When those two characters are asking questions, they're making statements, right? And they find things through actual detective work combined with what the insight that Ross Cole has, but that was it. That she didn't have that. So.
Yeah, and I no, that's a very good point, and I think that's sort of what I was taking from the spiral is that if this is, not just if there is something sort of mystical about this, and it's not just some prehistoric creature trapped in the ice, that this is like she's cut off from that, like she doesn't have access to sort of the other. Different other dimensions, spiritual dimensions. Maybe that's a stretch, but I that's kind of how I took it. Is that she's it's sort of a symbol. But yeah, getting to the core, I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and Melly says that Russ Cole turned his back on God when his daughter died. Well, that's true, but he's still turning his back on God. So God exists in his paradigm,
right?
Which is to say that he is willfully not. I'm not saying obviously that doesn't make him right. I'm just saying he exists in a different world than she does, which is just nothingness. His is not like that. He has visions, right? He sees things from beyond, and he talks about these things. That it's not. I'm not saying it's not a Christian paradigm. I'm just saying it's something wholly different, like in his psychic mind, than what Jodie Foster sees, which is how she just turns into negative. She just turns into complete materialism now, not even Darwinian sense. It's just the eternal now that she believes, that she doesn't even believe in anything. It's just now. Right.
Because she says that she, I guess became an atheist or whatever after she prayed, and her mother, still died from whatever disease she had anyway. And so she's just like that typical angry and just to where I think with Rust's kind of worldview, it's that there's still room for the spiritual, whereas Liz repeatedly says no, there's only here, there's only now, there's nothing out there, there's nothing else beyond just what we can see, touch, smell, taste, and feel. That's it. Yes. And so to one of the things that there's kind of supernatural elements I thought were kind of annoying is one of them was where when she was trying to sleep in one of the beds at the Salal Center, she's like starts messing with her hair and then pulls out the gold cross necklace that Eve's mother had been wearing, and I think Eve threw out the window of her SUV while she was driving. And that I was like, really, like that's what we're gonna get. She's let me find this gold cross in my hair. I was like that's just too far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, hopefully it was Eve's way of, she threw it out and then she got something back when her sister was gone, and then she found the cross, and maybe she goes out there and finds, maybe Eve, because Eve got her name. Remember, her vision was she got her name in her walkabout, right? Her version of a walkabout. She goes out there and sees the hand come to her, just like her hand went and saved Jodie Foster. A hand, kind of a Masonic hand, comes out of nowhere, grabs her and tells her name. And then when she goes and meets the women, that's their way in. That they walk in and she says, "My name is," and it was a little bit hokey when she said her name, because she hadn't told Jodie Foster that she found her name.
Right.
She uses it. And then they say, "Oh, well, come on in. Do you know what that name means? The light after the dark night." So now she's been illuminated. Right.
Right.
And then at the end, we have full illumination with now it's back to daytime, and she's out on the porch in her Airbnb, overlooking the valley all by herself. And Yeah, I guess that's it.
And so yeah, I was like, I don't was Eve had she just disappeared? Because then we actually see Eve walking out into the snow, like out towards this kind of valley, I guess, between these mountains. But that's it. But Liz actually says, "Oh, you won't find her out on the ice."
Yeah.
But then we see when they're at this cabin, it's like, so is that Eve's cabin? Like, is she just hiding out there? Like, what's going on? And like, who is she? I mean, I guess she wasn't technically hiding because it's like there's nothing to hide from.
Well, I guess what she did was what the other guys did who were working at the science place, who went out with the nomads.
Yeah,
right? They escaped both civilization and the Inuit, and I mean, I guess they went out on their own into the world. And also, remember, we did actually see the way it actually ties up is that we see the guy who's the first one shown in the whole season, the guy who's hunting the AI reindeer who jump off the ledge. Now we know that the reindeer, remember that? The CGI reindeer?
Oh, he was the guy who was hiking at the end and was looking at the closed down mine?
That was the guy. Yeah.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. That was him.
So I'm glad at least they tied that up. I mean, it didn't really tie it up, but at least it's like now we know that the reindeer jumped off because they were poisoned by the water and by the factory, right? But we see him at the end, and then does he see Eve? I think he sees Eve, and it's like, okay, now we've got these individuals who are, I guess that's supposed to say that they're true to their cultural nature, which is they're nomads and they're going to go out and they're going to live out in the wilderness, I suppose. But I don't know. It still wasn't strong enough, you know.
Yeah, it was kind of there's just too much ambiguity, and not in the sense of, like I was saying earlier, where in the other seasons you have these unanswered questions, but this one it's like, okay, yeah, the case is all wrapped up, but now here's all these supernatural elements. Is Eve actually out at this cabin? Is she not? Were any of the flashbacks, like what flashbacks were real, what weren't? What's is she, with the nomad?
Yeah. Uh-oh, did I freeze?
We're both
there we
okay.
go.
We're good. In the first 3 seasons, there were unanswered questions, but it was satisfactory because it's like, okay, now we, if there's something, you can kind of think about it for yourself, fill in the gaps. And in this one, it was like, I don't know, it was just a different way of kind of having unanswered questions. I thought was certainly lacking, and I don't know. I thought it was I was kind of disappointed. And it was interesting because before the series had ended, Nick Pizzolatto was basically trashing the show on Instagram. I guess he'd made some post, people were commenting on it. He was like, "Oh yeah, this is so stupid," and was like making these comments. And I was like, "Oh, maybe he's a little harsh." But now, maybe he could have, and I think he deleted the comments. So it's like, okay, maybe he could have been a bit more generous. But I mean, I don't know. He can do whatever he wants. I don't care. It's his show as far as I'm concerned. But it was just sort of, now I can understand where, and I don't know if he knew how the show ended or not, but I was like, I can certainly understand. And I get his frustration because it's like you create the greatest season of television ever in history. Yeah. And then like this is what gets done to it, which again, I'm not bashing season 4. I didn't hate it, but it definitely felt like a disservice to the other 3 seasons to an extent.
I've got Nick Pizzolatto's novel here, Galveston, which has Roy Cady. I think Roy Cady is Colin Farrell's character in episode 2 or season 2 rather. But he wrote a book called Galveston, which is pretty good. I would recommend reading it. There was a movie version of this, but it's not great. But it's Nick Pizzolatto's novel that he wrote after True Detective, I think season 1. I read this in 2015. So, I mean, I think they picked up somebody sent me a thing today. I think they've picked up another season of this with the same director. And no, look, man, when you got something good, you can go for it. I mean, seasons 2 and 3 were great, but like, again, remake of American Psycho, remake of True Detective, like, remember Yellowstone? It's like 4 million different kinds of Yellowstone, 4 million different movies and offshoots, and Walking Dead and Avengers. And, I just find something good and make it once, and then let's go to the next thing, and I just don't see that happening. much. You know, Dune comes out like in a couple weeks, so looking forward to seeing that. Civil War, the Alex Garland comes out, I think, in the summertime. Hopefully, it's in the summer and not in the fall. So we'll look forward to seeing that. But there's not much else. Not much else out there, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's all just, yeah, I mean, I like the anthology series because, you know, there's a lot of anthology shows like Twilight Zone, Tales from the Crypt, those kinds of things.
I thought you were going to say Twilight.
Yes, I'm a big Twilight guy.
That's my favorite movie.
Yes, I've seen all of them. I watch them on repeat, actually, all day, every day. But yeah, I don't know. If they do another season, yeah, I'll watch it. I don't, you know, hopefully it's better. I don't know. It just, I was going somewhere with that. Now I kind of lost. I don't even know really what else I can say about it. I mean, it just, yeah, the constant remakes, nobody, and like, there's so many good novels, there's so many good books. And I'm not even saying that, because a lot of adaptations of books end up not being good, but I'm just saying there is source material out there. But clearly, I mean, seasons 1, 2, and 3 of True Detective, Longmire, Justified, The Sopranos, you know, even Breaking Bad, Sons of Anarchy, which ended terribly. I hated the last episode. Really, the last season was terrible. But I mean, shows like this, it evidences that there are people out there with good ideas. But it like the amount of, I think a lot of it is laziness, because it takes so much effort and so much work. If you're going to write a story, if you're going to write a screenplay, if you're going to do something original, that takes so much more effort than, we'll just take this thing that's already been done before, maybe rewrite a few things, tweak a few things to, you know, make it line up with, you know, BlackRock's, you know, initiatives for what they want to see. And then,
oh, by the way, did you see that they dropped out of the climate initiative?
Who did?
BlackRock. There's BlackRock and somebody else. BlackRock and like Vanguard or somebody are scaling back like in a huge way on all the climate initiatives.
Interesting. I had not heard that.
Yeah, it seemed to be pretty big news. I'm not on Twitter or anything, so I didn't hear much more about it. But
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, you got to look into that. I'm sure you know more about it than I do. But I thought that was interesting. They said it just wasn't tenable. It wasn't possible. Yeah, it wasn't tenable, and yeah. I thought that was interesting. That is not what I expected, but I guess that's par for the course again. It's never what you expect. Sure, there'll be something else. They're like, no, we're not interested in this. We're just going straight Neuralink.
Yeah. Everybody's going to have to get something implanted in your brain, or, you know, we're just going to cut you off from food and water and shelter and everything else.
Yeah, you can move out to Ennis. See how you like it.
But yeah, I don't know. Did you? I pretty much said everything I had to say about. Do you have anything else you want to throw in?
Me too. No, that's about all I got. You guys go and check out my latest streams. I'm going to be doing some members only streams this week, probably for a little bit, because I've held off for about 2 weeks. So please go and check out go watch some of the older ones, you guys. If you haven't seen them. Because people have been asking for stuff that I've done. And now that I've done like 200 streams, I'm starting to get, you know, I've done a lot of things. So I'm starting to get new people who haven't been at the beginning. So that's fine. But that's great. But, you know, like Dark Virago, the one on Tessa the D'Urbervilles. Go and watch my latest Twilight of Tragedy, Revelatory Politics and Shakespeare, Thief, Collateral, Last of the Mohicans, and what was the other one? Miami Vice stream. I just did that one. Check out the older ones, the literature. I'm going to be coming back soon when I do the regular channel open ones with Brad Easton Ellis and Cormac McCarthy, because it's time to get back to those. And right now, just for fun, I'm reading this Blood. I just read a little bit of this today. This Blood and Fire book on the Duke of Windsor. And I've already done a stream on dragons, but I'm reading another Penguin edition of Dragons, ancient literature dealing with dragons. And so then we're going to be doing more movies and stuff on the members only, but that's about it. Thanks for having me, man. I'm glad we got to talk about this. Oh, and everybody go to Jamie if you're not there already. You know, go and watch Jamie's stream that she's doing right now. So I'm going to head over there right when we're done with this. That's about it.
Yes, absolutely. So I haven't had a chance to listen to the Miami Vice stream yet. I am, and the other ones as well. I am going to I'm going to check that one out. Looking forward to that one. The Shakespeare one from the other night was great. Definitely, everybody give that one a listen. It was very good. Grab a membership to BLA's channel. It's worth it. Trust me, I'm a member, and the streams are fantastic. I've really enjoyed those.
Thanks,
and we'll be back. We've got a few things in the work. Yeah, sorry, Jason. I messed something up earlier when I was changing something with moderation, so you should be good now. It should be back. Okay, yeah, you're back. But yeah, so we have a few things we're talking about doing, and we'll be back soon. Got a few things I'm working on. So anyway, yeah, huge thanks everybody for hanging out. This was a heck of a lot of fun, and I guess that's pretty much it. So yeah, go check out Jamie's stream, and Drill John Connor says, would you ever do a stream on The Wire? I'd be up for doing that. I haven't watched The Wire in a long time.
I never watched it. I never watched The Wire, and I never watched Game of Thrones.
I watched maybe 2.5 seasons of Game of Thrones, and I was like, this sucks.
Yeah. I just
stopped watching it.
I never did. I think it's because I was living away. I was living abroad when The Wire came out, and then I kind of missed the initial boat. And then I didn't have HBO. I just missed it. But I know how everybody talks about it, how great it is, and I'm sure I would love it. But I just never watched it. Speaking of Mahershala Ali, isn't that what he was in, The Wire?
I'm pretty sure he was in. I'm pretty sure that's right. Yeah.
Go back and watch that Miami Vice. I went off on that one. I went off on some different subjects and really, really got wild in that one. So if you guys haven't seen that, shouts out to everybody who's in the chat tonight. Thank you for stopping by. And when we're done here, go over to Jamie's stream, Jamie Hanshaw.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So thanks everybody, and we'll catch y'all again soon.
Peace.